Chapter 1959. He was well aware of how frightening his spear was. He did not spread his power throughout the entire shrine. Otherwise, his spear would have pierced through the stars in the sky. However, it was even more frightening when it was concentrated at a single point. It could be said to be indestructible. However, it could only pierce through his palm. Under normal circumstances, his entire arm would have been blown apart on the spot. From this, one could imagine the reason why this brat dared to sneak back in so arrogantly. You do have some skills. However, it's useless. No one can save you today. He looked at Yi Shiwen coldly, as if he was looking at a dead man. Rumble! In that instant, murderous intent surged from his body. As a peak profound death realm intermediate stage expert, even if he had yet to step into the profound death realm advanced stage, it was already frightening enough. The powerful and frightening power swept towards Yi Shiwen. This time, Yi Shiwen did not choose to take it head-on. Golden divinities surged from beneath his feet. Wind and thunder wings unfolded behind him and instantly flapped. In the next second, he had already disappeared from where he was. Boom! The entire space where he was standing was blasted into fragments. Everything was scattered, with spatial fragments flying everywhere. The entire scene looked incomparably frightening. Although this spear attack was not too dazzling, those who were truly knowledgeable would understand the murderous intent contained within it. If one was not careful, one might be blasted to smithereens on the spot. When Yi Shiwen reappeared, he was already behind the old man. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were incomparably cold. In an instant, he had entered the clear mirror state. Even if such an expert had yet to step into the profound death realm advanced stage, he had no choice but to go all out. Clang! The sword light was shocking. It swept out from his hand and headed straight for the old man's head. Its speed was extremely fast and its power was extremely powerful. The old man's reaction was also extremely fast. He did not expect Yi Shiwen's speed to be so fast. Yi Shiwen had easily dodged his spear attack. The malevolent expression on his face froze. However, his reaction was even faster. He immediately retracted his spear and turned around to stab towards the sword light that Yi Shiwen had sent down. Clang! The tip of the spear and the light of the sword collided directly. It was as if two mighty stars had collided in the void. The dazzling light swept out, causing the void to collapse. There were even some screams coming from the dark creatures hiding in the darkness of the divine temple, peeping at the battle. Originally, they wanted to wait for the two of them to fight so that they could reap the benefits. Who knew that just the shockwaves from the two of them's fight would shock a group of them to death? They had just revived with great difficulty, but they were shocked to death again. He didn't even have the time to react before he was shaken to death. The crazy exchange between the two intermediate profound death stage experts seemed as though the entire palace was about to collapse. The various defensive formations within the palace were all activated. Under the aftershocks of the battle, the palace continued to tremble. It seemed as though it could completely collapse at any moment. With the exception of young Master Gui Yun, the two middle stage profound death stage experts could be said to be the top existences among the thousands of profound death stage experts. No one dared to get close to these two experts who were fighting crazily. Bang! 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 Yi Shiwen and the old man continued to exchange blows. The void continued to collapse. Yi Shiwen continued to counterattack and injure the old man, but he was constantly suppressed. Although Yi Shiwen was at a disadvantage against this old man, he wasn't as powerless as when he was against young Master Gui Yun. Suddenly, a fist incarnation appeared behind Yi Shiwen. It was another domineering figure that looked down on the world. It was like the greatest ruler in the world, and it integrated into Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen's strength immediately soared from the initial intermediate profound death stage to the peak intermediate profound death stage. Bang! Once again, Yi Shiwen didn't retreat. Both of them were evenly matched. The old man had cultivated for many more years than Yi Shiwen, but Yi Shiwen had integrated with the fist incarnation and was incomparably violent. For a time, both of them were evenly matched. Martial arts incarnation. Although the old man couldn't suppress Yi Shiwen, he was still very accurate. He could immediately tell that Yi Shiwen had condensed a martial arts incarnation. An expert who had condensed a martial arts incarnation was terrifying. Every single one of them was terrifying. Not only did it mean that they were tyrannical and terrifying, but the most important thing was that after the martial arts incarnation was released, their combat power would undergo an earth-shattering change in a short period of time. It was a bit like a secret technique, but it didn't have any side effects and could be used freely at any time. Back then, Yi Shiwen and Jun Dingtian were in similar realms. Although Yi Shiwen's skills were slightly inferior to Jun Dingtian's, it wasn't to the extent of being worlds apart. However, the actual result was that Yi Shiwen was abused by Jun Dingtian. That was one of the few battles since Yi Shiwen's debut where he couldn't even fight back. Although he managed to force Jun Dingtian to retreat by consuming his energy, it was only because Yi Shiwen had a heaven-defying technique like Phoenix regeneration. If it were someone else, they would have been killed. It was precisely because the gap between them was so huge because of the martial arts incarnation that Yi Shiwen desired martial arts incarnation so much. Since you have condensed a martial arts incarnation, then you can't be taken lightly. The old man's eyes suddenly became sharp. With his experience, he naturally understood what martial arts incarnation meant. There were thousands of so-called geniuses, but whether they could condense martial arts incarnation was another watershed. Many geniuses were also divided into different levels. Those who could condense martial arts incarnation were naturally top-notch geniuses. No matter how many martial arts incarnations they could condense, their power was beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. If Yi Shiwen condensed a second martial arts incarnation, wouldn't he be beaten to death on the spot? You will die today. It's useless even if you integrate with martial arts incarnation. The old man knew very well what the consequences of not removing the roots of a weed was, not to mention that such a peerless genius failed to remove the root of the weed. Although he couldn't condense martial arts incarnation, his understanding of martial arts incarnation was no less than theirs. He was also very clear that although martial arts incarnation was powerful and had no side effects, its biggest problem was that it couldn't last long in a battle. Only after proving one's Tao and turning one's body into a world with endless spiritual qi, known as boundless magic power, could one truly display the ultimate power of martial arts incarnation. And this martial arts incarnation itself was a god-level magical martial art in the distant past. It was originally not for ordinary people to use. It was only later that a simplified version slowly spread among the mysterious realm experts. This was also why geniuses were divided according to this. If a mortal could comprehend the god-level magical martial art, then what would they be if not a peerless genius? Boom! The long spear smashed the sky and directly fell towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. After accommodating the fist incarnation, Yi Shiwen could be said to have seen the heart of the fist, and its power was infinite. He blasted out a punch, and the entire sky suddenly collapsed. It was tit for tat with the falling spear light, and unexpectedly, it was not at a disadvantage at all. Come on, let's fight again. See if I don't kill you today. The old man roared tyrannically. At this time, his tyrannical nature was completely revealed. However, he didn't expect that Yi Shiwen wouldn't be on the same level as him. Yi Shiwen disappeared in midair in a flash. Little bastard, where are you going? He immediately chased after Yi Shiwen, unable to restrain his anger. He did not expect Yi Shiwen to leave just like that. It was simply infuriating. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen's figure was constantly shuttling in the void, avoiding the old man's pursuit. Although his current combat strength was not inferior to the old man's, it was not his original strength, and he could not take down the old man in a short period of time. When the fist incarnation was exhausted, it was inevitable that he would end up in the same situation as Jun Dingtian. Right now, my strength is insufficient. If my strength improved further and reached the peak of the profound death realm intermediate stage, killing this old dog would only be a matter of time. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. The power of the martial arts incarnation was extraordinary. When it was condensed into one, it could be called the best among those of the same level. If it was not for the fact that he had almost reached the profound death realm advanced stage, and that he had tens of thousands of years of cultivation, ordinary profound death realm intermediate stage experts would have been killed by him with a single punch. Yishuan did not know how many space palaces he had shuttled through. Suddenly, Yishuan sensed a delicate fragrance coming directly to his nose. With a thought, he went directly to the palace where the fragrance came from. In this palace, there was an incomparably huge blood pool. This blood pool was constantly bubbling, and a powerful force was rolling in it. Yishuan only sensed a delicate fragrance coming to his face, and there was not the slightest bit of the stench of ordinary blood. Yishuan, this is blood essence, refined from the blood essence of countless experts. Yimo's voice was heard, and even he was a little shocked. Yishuan's eyes immediately lit up. What was blood essence? It was the blood of a person's heart. Even a top expert would not have too much blood essence. It could be said that the blood essence in a person's body was the condensation of all the essence in a person's body. What did it mean to refine countless blood essence? If Yishuan was able to absorb it, his cultivation would probably soar in an instant. Currently, he had already stepped into the intermediate profound death stage. However, he had only just entered the intermediate profound death stage. It was impossible for him to raise his strength to the peak in one go using ordinary methods. The only way was to slowly accumulate his strength bit by bit. This was the only way. Wait for me to absorb this blood essence, and my cultivation will improve further. If that old dog dares to chase after me, I will let him die without a burial. Yishuan was immediately overjoyed. Chapter 1960. That's not right. This place has clearly been abandoned for so long. How can there still be so much essence blood? After such a long time, most of the essence blood should have evaporated by now. Yimo's voice was heard. There's also the sand-devouring heaven-swallowing beast outside. After such a long time, how does it survive? Although the sand-devouring heaven-swallowing beast was known to devour sand to survive, how much sand would be needed for such a huge creature to survive until now? It would probably devour an entire world. Yishuan, there is so much essence blood. Just by devouring a portion, you will be able to reach the peak of profound death realm intermediate stage. Wasn't the sword principal doppelganger stuck at the last step? You can completely condense it now. Yimo temporarily put these doubts behind him. Yes. Yishuan's face was also filled with uncontrollable joy. This was a huge harvest, much greater than any Xian core. After devouring these essence blood, his life essence would undergo a huge transformation. He did not stop and directly plunge into the essence blood. Immediately, he felt a boundless pressure crushing over. These essence blood were not only essence blood, but also of extremely high quality. It was unknown how many powerful creatures had been slaughtered to form such a huge pool of blood. He immediately activated the observing person scripture. His entire body was like a cosmic vortex as countless essence blood was directly sucked in by him. Ordinary energy would need to be filtered many times to be absorbed. However, these essence blood were the essence of essence. There might only be a few drops of essence blood in one's entire body. One could imagine the level of essence blood. Moreover, Yishuan could feel that these essence blood were at least refined by powerful creatures above the profound death realm after being slaughtered. Although he was a little puzzled as to why there were so many essence blood of existences above the profound death realm here, profound death realm was definitely a big shot in the Xian world. How could so many of them have been slaughtered? However, at this moment, he had completely forgotten about these matters. Boom! 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 The aura of Yishuan's body was soaring along with his continuous breathing and exhaling. His strength continued to soar as he continued to absorb the blood essence. His body had undergone another transformation after stepping into the mid-profound death stage, allowing him to store even more energy. However, it would take him a longer time to do so. Every time they crossed a threshold, they would need a long period of accumulation. Therefore, for ordinary martial artists, even talent was not their natural enemy. Time was their real natural enemy. Time passed minute by minute, second by second, but they were stuck in that realm, unable to advance, and finally exhausted to death. Normally, even if it was a profound core, after being refined countless times, it would still be impossible to completely absorb the spiritual qi and could only transform it into true essence. If one wanted to transform their body, they could only do so slowly. How could it be like this blood essence, which could be swallowed in one breath? These were the essence blood of profound death stage experts. In fact, he did not even need to refine them in order to devour them in large mouthfuls to increase his strength. He sat cross-legged in the blood pool, seizing every second to increase his strength. At that moment, the old man who had been following them also arrived. Such a large pool of blood essence? Moreover, they're all at the profound death stage. The old man immediately sucked in a breath of cold air before becoming wild with joy. How could he not know what such a large pool of blood essence meant? After devouring this pool of blood essence, his cultivation would be able to immediately step into the late profound death stage. Moreover, he would be able to step into the peak profound death stage within a short period of time. At that time, he would truly be a peak expert below legendary figures. However, legendary figures were rarely seen. These experts at the peak of the profound death stage were practically the rulers of the entire profound world. Even going one step further, the legend stage was not a delusion. As he thought of this, his expression instantly turned crazy. He did not even care about chasing after Yi Shiwen. What was more important than increasing his own strength? If that little bastard dared to appear in front of him again, he would definitely beat him to death. There's really no such thing as a dead end. Originally, it would be extremely difficult for me to advance further at my age. However, I never imagined that I would have such a fortuitous encounter. Once I absorb all of these essence blood essence, my name will definitely shake the world. He laughed heartily. He laughed so hard that he could not catch his breath. He was just like young Master Gui Yun. It's a pity that you won't have such a chance. Suddenly, an incomparably cold voice rang out from the pool of blood. Who is it? The old man immediately shouted and said. However, he quickly reacted. This voice could not be any more familiar. A figure slowly emerged from the pool of blood essence. Who else could it be other than Yi Shiwen? It's actually you. I can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find you effortlessly. The old man's face revealed a somewhat malevolent and pleasantly surprised expression. It seems that the heavens really want you dead. They actually allowed you to be caught by me here. I see that you still have no way of escaping. As he spoke, the aura from his body spread out and sealed the entrance of the hall. He did not expect Yi Shiwen to actually escape. This time, he would definitely not give Yi Shiwen any chance. Escape? Who said that I'm going to escape? Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes and said with a smile. He walked out of the pool of blood step by step and then said with a smile, what a coincidence. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find you effortlessly. In fact, I also wanted to say this sentence just now. It seems that the heavens really want you dead. Don't you think so? Arrogant. Today, I want you to die. The old man roared coldly. His entire person was like a peerless, ferocious beast that had awakened. His aura was monstrous. Boom! The long spear was like a poisonous dragon drilling. In an instant, it directly shot out and blasted through the world. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. He directly faced it with his sword. Clang! There was a huge collision sound like that of gold and iron. The powerful collision directly caused waves of ripples that spread out. With a loud bang, cracks appeared in the space. The two were actually evenly matched. Yi Shiwen was not at a disadvantage at all. How is this possible? The old man was instantly incomparably shocked. He had never imagined that things would actually turn out like this. Although Yi Shiwen's cultivation level was already the same as his, they were both in the profound death realm intermediate stage. The gap between them could be as wide as the heavens and the earth, like the clouds and the mud. Yi Shiwen, who had just entered the profound death realm intermediate stage, was able to fight against him without being killed on the spot. Furthermore, Yi Shiwen was evenly matched with him. This was simply like the heavens and earth collapsing. It was simply impossible. Most importantly, Yi Shiwen had yet to fuse with the Fist Dao incarnation. This was the most important thing. Could it be? his pupils suddenly shrank. He immediately looked at the blood pool behind him, and his expression immediately turned ugly. He immediately understood how Yi Shiwen's strength had increased so much. He must have absorbed the essence blood in the blood pool. When he thought of this, his expression became even more sinister. He had long regarded the essence blood in the blood pool as his own. At this moment, someone had actually beaten him to it. This feeling was absolutely unbearable. You actually dare to touch it? He was incomparably furious. Yi Shiwen actually dared to touch something that he had already decided on. It was as if he was carving a piece of flesh out of his heart. This is yours? You can talk about this if you can survive. Yi Shiwen sneered. The aura on his body continued to rise, rising bit by bit. It soared all the way to the peak of the profound life realm intermediate stage before barely stopping. Die! The old man let out a deafening roar, and the spear radiance splashed out. The entire world was shaking, and countless laws suddenly surged out. In an instant, the laws of the spear Tao constructed a brand new world. With a rumble, it crushed towards Yi Shiwen. Old dog, do you still think it's the same as before? Yi Shiwen did not move at all. The long sword in his hand drew an astonishing sword light. In an instant, he attacked. It was just an ordinary sword, but it had the power to collapse the heavens and earth. Rumble! The splashing light from both sides shattered the sky. Everything was directly shattered. Amidst the endless light, Yi Shiwen's sword directly broke through the old man's spear light. His strength became even stronger. Rip! The spear light was torn apart on the spot. The sound was abnormally loud and unpleasant, just like a cloth being torn apart. Clang! The long sword and the long spear collided fiercely in the void. The sound of metal colliding swept out violently. The old man immediately felt a numbness in his arm. His entire perlicue instantly cracked. How can his physical body be so strong? He did not feel like this when he was fighting before. As Yi Shiwen's strength became more and more tyrannical, the people he fought were all powerful existences who had cultivated for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. Unlike his previous opponents, the gap between them was at least dozens of years, and the gap between them was only a few hundred years. Now, there was a gap of thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years of accumulation were all concentrated together. Therefore, the advantage of Yi Shiwen's tyrant body could not be fully displayed. However, even so, it was still very shocking. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long been beaten to death by these old monsters. The fact that he was only at a disadvantage was enough to prove his tyrannical strength. Age and accumulation were Yi Shiwen's biggest weaknesses. They were also his biggest shortcomings. This point would be reflected more vividly and vividly as he went up the path. In the past, Yi Shiwen could surpass levels as easily as eating and drinking water. Now it was extremely difficult, because no matter how strong his combat power was, it would be submerged by thousands or tens of thousands of years of cultivation. However, when the skills were comparable, Yi Shiwen's combat power could erupt to a terrifying level. Chapter 1961. The old man felt that his entire arm had gone numb after just a single exchange. This was something that would have been impossible in the past. What kind of monstrous strength was required to achieve such a feat? After cultivating to the profound death realm, one could be said to have the strength to uproot mountains even without the help of any martial arts or magical powers. Furthermore, one's physical body was extremely tyrannical. In the end, they were seriously injured by just a single strike. What kind of terrifying strength was this? This is just the beginning. Yi Shiwen held the long sword in his hand and suddenly stomped his foot. His entire body was like a cannonball as he directly attacked. Swoosh! The sword light was like a galaxy that had fallen into the mortal world. It formed an incomparably huge waterfall as it headed straight for the old man's face. This attack of his was extremely fast. It was also extremely powerful. The snow-white sword-light cut through everything. Its power was astonishing. In the blink of an eye, it was like a group of demons and gods were roaring. It directly transformed into a universe on the spot and devoured everything. A horrified look immediately flashed across the old man's eyes. Yi Shiwen's body was filled with an aura that could kill gods and Buddhas. It was shocking and did not give him any chance to react at all. Clang! He only had enough time to retract his long spear and use it to block in front of him. A loud roar resounded as the tip of the sword fiercely touched the body of the long spear. A large portion of the scales on the body of the long spear were instantly shattered. The frightening power also followed the long spear and directly rushed towards the old man's arm. Buzz! He immediately felt that his arm was frantically buzzing. The frequency of the frantic vibration seemed as if it was going to shatter his entire arm. He let out a loud roar and mobilized his real yuan. He forcefully suppressed this wave of power and avoided the misfortune of his entire arm being shattered. His pupils continuously contracted as he panted heavily. There was a stuffy feeling in his chest, as if he was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. A horrified expression finally appeared on his face. In his eyes, the person in front of him was simply not a human. Instead, he was a monster in human skin. Yes, he was a monster. His physical body had almost been smashed into smithereens, and he hadn't been hit directly. If he had been hit directly, the consequences would have been unimaginable. How did he do it? How could he be so terrifying? Just a moment ago, his strength was far inferior to mine. How did he become so terrifying in such a short period of time? Moreover, he had only arrived a little later, not too late at all. How could he have become like this? His strength had made an earth-shattering improvement. This was illogical. How was that? Do you still think I want to escape? Yi Shiwen sneered. He opened his mouth, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. In the eyes of that old man, it was simply a devil's smile. If you run away now, maybe it's not too late, Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile. The old man's complexion turned ashen as he looked at Yi Shiwen. He wished that he could swallow Yi Shiwen alive. Yi Shiwen had dared to humiliate him with such words. When the young master finds you, it will be the time of your death, he said viciously. Even so, you won't be able to hold on until then. Moreover, do you think I will let him get what he wants? Yi Shiwen said coldly. No matter what young Master Ghost Fortune wanted this time, he would never let him get what he wanted. Didn't you say that young Master Ghost Luck can absorb the luck of others for his own use? I want to see if he will be so lucky this time. Impossible. You won't be able to stop it in time. The old man sneered. He only thought that Yi Shiwen was delusional. You reminded me that I don't have much time left. I have to get rid of you as soon as possible and then find young Master Ghost Luck. Yi Shiwen said coldly. You. The old man was exasperated. He didn't expect that Yi Shiwen could actually find out from his words that young Master Ghost Luck probably didn't have time to solve the problem. If you want to go over, then step over my dead body. The old man narrowed his eyes and said coldly. His whole body began to release a kind of blood-red light, like a kind of innate demon god. The long spear in his hand was like a dragon, and it was unknown whether it was millions of kilograms or tens of millions of kilograms. At this time, all of it emitted a shocking power, smashing everything in its way, and directly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. In the distance, someone's expression changed drastically. He didn't know who had such terrifying power. He fought and roared, and his murderous aura surged. It could be said that he had done his best to attack. At this time, how could he dare to hold back at all? It was equivalent to courting death. Kacha! Even the space was crushed and shattered by an invisible pressure. How terrifying was this spear? Want to overturn the sky? No way. Yi Shiwen's eyes turned cold, and then he directly rushed out. His sword split the sky and slashed down fiercely. Bang! There was another huge explosion. The moment the two sides collided, the old man's hands exploded with a loud bang. How could the power of Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form be ordinary? It directly passed through the long spear and fiercely bombarded the old man's arms. The old man's palms exploded with a loud bang and turned into a bloody mess. Puff! Finally, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his whole body retreated dozens of steps before he could barely stop himself. His eyes were filled with incomparable horror. He finally understood what kind of monster he had provoked. It was fine if such a monster hadn't grown up, but once he did, he would definitely become young Master Ghost Luck's most powerful enemy. "I'll fight you to the death." A hint of fierceness flashed in his eyes. No matter what, he had to drag Yishuan down with him. Clang! The spear light was like a dragon, directly smashing everything and pressing towards Yishuan. Blood broke out in the void, turning into a law talisman, and its power became even more powerful. "Still don't understand? You are still far from it." Yishuan sneered. He directly took a step forward and slashed down with his sword. Clang! There was a deafening roar, and the long spear couldn't resist Yishuan's monstrous strength. It directly shattered, and the remaining two pieces directly flew out of the old man's hand. It looked extremely terrifying. Blood splattered, and flesh and bones scattered. "I'll finish you with another sword." The old man's whole body flew out, and he didn't even have time to regain his balance in midair. He only heard a cold shout, and a sword light tore through the sky like a waterfall and ruthlessly slashed at his body. Bang! The old man's body directly exploded on the spot, turning into a cloud of blood mist. He was completely not Yi Shiwen's opponent. After Yi Shiwen used his full strength, he didn't even have the strength to fight back. The sky full of blood mist didn't have time to disperse, and the exploded martial power was absorbed by Yi Shiwen, consolidating his current realm. Moreover, the wealth of millions of Xiandon also fell into Yi Shiwen's hands. Although it was nothing compared to the millions of Xiandon that Yi Shiwen had consumed before, but it was still not a small amount of wealth. Yi Shiwen's face beamed with joy. The old man didn't know if he had cultivated for thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years, to reach his current strength, but Yi Shiwen had now almost leaped up. It was completely conceivable that after absorbing the blood essence, he had saved a lot of hard work. Of course, this was also because the old man was stuck in this realm. But according to Yi Shiwen's own estimation, if he didn't have a fortuitous encounter and practiced normally, it would take at least a few decades, or even a few hundred years, to reach this realm, but he didn't expect to achieve it overnight. One could imagine the huge harvest this time. It was much greater than the 20 million Xiandon he had gained in the lava dimension. Most importantly, even though Yi Shiwen had stepped into the peak of the intermediate profound death realm in one go, he had only consumed about 1/10 of the blood essence in this blood pool. This was because the capacity of Yi Shiwen's body far exceeded that of an ordinary intermediate profound death realm expert. If it was an ordinary intermediate profound death realm expert, perhaps he wouldn't even need to consume 1/100th of the blood essence. After all, this blood essence was refined from the hearts of experts above the profound death realm, and any drop of it was countless times more precious than treasured medicines in the outside world. With this pool of blood essence, Yi Shiwen was confident that he could break into a higher realm in one go in a short period of time, and even the myth realm might not be impossible. With this pool of blood essence, it will be much more convenient in the future, and I might even be able to break into the advanced profound death realm in one go. It won't take more than a few years, and it won't matter if I don't go to the nameless Dao Academy. Yi Shiwen said happily. Yi Shiwen, you can't think that way. You've just stepped into the intermediate profound death stage, and you want to step into the late profound death stage in one go. This kind of foundation isn't solid enough. If you want to break into the legend stage, your foundation is more than enough. However, if you want to prove your Dao, your foundation is still far from enough. There have been so many outstanding people in the past, but only a handful have been able to prove their Dao. In fact, there are many geniuses among them. On the other hand, there aren't those who have walked step by step and only obtained their Dao in their later years. Why? The difference lies in your foundation. If you want to advance further, you must build a stronger foundation than anyone else. You have just stepped into the intermediate profound death realm, and you want to step into the advanced profound death realm in one go. This kind of foundation isn't stable, and it is more than enough for you to break into the myth realm. However, if you want to prove your Dao, it is still far from enough. How many outstanding people have proven their Tao in the past, and how many of them have proven their Tao? In fact, there are many geniuses among them, but none of them have succeeded in advancing step by step and only attained the Tao in their later years. Why? Then what should I do? Yi Shiwen asked. You should know that my enemies will only grow stronger in the future. If I don't grow quickly, I'm afraid that it won't be long before I'm killed by them. Chapter 1962. Whether it was the Divine Union or the Heaven Wasteland Hall, there were many experts in Cloud Beyond City. Even though Yi Mo's strength had improved greatly and he could protect himself, it was still impossible for him to kill Elder Xian Ting, who had been seriously injured by him. Unless he used the Ghost Heart Flame Array again or the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber, the price of these two methods would be very high. The most cost-effective method was naturally to increase his own strength. Furthermore, he might have to face a terrifying existence like the Divine Union's leader in the future, as well as the Abyssal Demon Master, who was an invincible legend in the mythical realm. Even if he used the Ghost Heart Flame Array, he still wouldn't be a match for them. These matters were like a sharp sword hanging over his head, constantly reminding him that his life could be taken away by these people at any time. So he did not dare to relax for even a moment. For the vast majority of cultivators, time could be said to be sufficient, but it could also be said to be insufficient. Even if he was a human, he still had at least 8,000 to 9,000 years of life left. Given his current foundation, even if he cultivated step by step, he was confident that he could become an invincible figure like the Divine Union's leader in a few thousand years. However, by that time, it would be too late. Who knew how powerful the Divine Union's leader or the Abyssal Demon Master would become? He didn't have that much time to waste. Furthermore, the premise was that he could cultivate step by step under the hands of these powerful and terrifying experts for a few thousand years. These matters forced him to focus on his own cultivation bit by bit. He didn't dare to relax for a moment. Don't worry, Yi Mo said. It's not your style to be greedy and advance rashly. Although ordinary people think that you've been advancing rapidly, you've always controlled your progress and built a very solid foundation. This is only according to my requirements. If you were an ordinary person, you wouldn't need such a solid foundation. Your son might have already entered the mythical realm by now. However, there are disadvantages and advantages. It's precisely because of this solid foundation that you can fight against those who have cultivated for thousands or even tens of thousands of years more than you. Time is what you lack the most, so you can only make up for it in other aspects. You'd better spend a few more years to consolidate this breakthrough. Otherwise, if you break through again, I'm afraid it will affect your future cultivation foundation. Some things can't be rushed. Yi Shiwen remained silent for a moment. It wasn't that he didn't know what Yi Mo had said. In fact, he was very clear about it. It was just that the current situation didn't give him the opportunity to do things step by step. Instead, it forced him to move forward at a rapid speed. It was like a man running at a fast pace. A big wolf dog would bite him from behind if he were to slow down even a little. This was how Yi Shiwen felt right now. He didn't dare to stop for even a moment. It's best for you to consolidate your cultivation. However, it's not impossible for you to improve your fighting strength. Yi Mo said. What is it? Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up as he asked. It wasn't a big problem for him not to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. What he was truly worried about was that he couldn't make a breakthrough in his fighting strength. This was the real problem. That is to form a second martial arts avatar. With your current strength, you are already invincible within the intermediate profound death stage. Even those old monsters who have trained for thousands of years are no match for you. If you were to merge with the Fist Arts avatar, you would even be able to defeat someone like Jun Dingtian. You would even be able to escape from experts at the advanced profound death stage. You would not need to pay such a huge price to escape from Elder Xianting. Yi Mo slowly said. However, if you merge with a second martial arts avatar, your strength will completely break through the barrier of the late profound death stage. In fact, you might even be able to match a peak late profound death stage expert. However, if your opponent also condenses a martial arts avatar, you won't be their match. Yi Shiwen was overjoyed when he heard this. He knew very little about the power of the second martial Tao incarnation because he had yet to condense the second martial Tao incarnation. He was surprised that the second martial Tao incarnation could allow him to defeat an enemy who was an entire realm higher than him. Such combat power was completely beyond his expectations. As for the possibility that his opponent had also condensed a martial arts avatar, there was nothing he could do about it. However, how many of such people were there? Those who could condense a martial arts avatar were extremely rare. Through this method, even if his cultivation level didn't increase, his fighting strength would increase by an astonishing amount in a short period of time. This was enough to help him defeat even more powerful enemies. At the same time, it wouldn't affect his current foundation. The condensation of a martial arts avatar could be said to defy the heavens and change one's fate. No one knew who created this technique, but it was truly terrifying. However, you have to be clear about one thing. The energy required to use two martial arts avatars at the same time can be said to be several times more than the energy required to fuse with a martial arts avatar. If you're not careful, you'll go bankrupt. You won't even have enough Xian cores. Said Yimo. Yi Shiwen exhaled and calmed down. Although the martial arts incarnation didn't have any sequelae, but in the end, it still had such a big drawback. It was impossible to be perfect, but this was enough. It was enough to become a trump card that he could use at a critical time. Xian cores, Xian cores. His eyes were flashing with a fiery desire, and he couldn't wait to collect all the Xian cores in the world. He had thought that 20 million Xian cores was almost comparable to those legendary figures, but in the end, he discovered that it was just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. He had only used the Ghost Heart Flame Array once, but it had already consumed so much Xian cores, so how much would he be able to afford in the future? As for the blood essence in this pool, although it could also be replenished, he couldn't bear to use it in a place like this. Unless he stepped into the legendary realm. Where else could he go to kill so many profound death realm experts and refine so much Xian cores? With a glance, he didn't know how many profound death realm experts had died. Even if there weren't 1,000, there were at least 800. Just the thought of such a number sent chills down his spine. He didn't know when this evil cult had collected so many Xian cores, and also didn't know why so many Xian cores had not been used up until now. However, at this moment, he couldn't care so much. Condensing a sword doppelganger was already an urgent matter. He had to raise his agenda. Because of the difficulty of condensing the doppelganger, he wasn't in too much of a hurry. Now that he couldn't increase his realm, this became a necessary method. Above his head, the Tianyuan mirror directly flew out and shot out a ball of blood light. In an instant, the Xian blood in the blood pool was directly absorbed into the Tianyuan mirror. Yimo, how long do you need to completely control that physical body? Yi Shiwen asked. He had a premonition that if Yimo controlled the physical body of the Lord of Darkness, he would definitely be a peerless demon that could shake the world once he attacked. Even if he didn't have any martial arts, an ordinary legendary realm expert wouldn't be a match for a deity-level physical body. At that time, for him, it was tantamount to having a super protective talisman. It won't take too long, Yimo said with a strange smile. When I come out, I will personally crush the head of the Abyss Demon Lord. Yimo's words were filled with hostility. He was still brooding over Yu Lian's death. If he couldn't personally kill the Abyss Demon Lord, he might not be able to rest in peace for the rest of his life. Apart from this matter, there was nothing else that could make this old demon who had lived for hundreds of millions of years so worried. At this time, Yishiwen thought of the young Kuan Prung and the Star Beast avatar that were still in the Demon Monarch's treasure house. That Star Beast avatar could almost swallow the entire world in one bite when it was at its peak. The true martial school was incomparably prosperous in the past, and they even had a great killing weapon like the true martial stone sword. However, even they had declined and could only barely seal it. One could imagine how terrifying it was. They were both ancient ferocious beasts, but compared to the cunning star beast, the sand-devouring, heaven-swallowing beast outside the temple was just an immature hairy doll. There was also the young Kuan Peng. He didn't know what was wrong with the way he opened it. The Kuan Peng, who had been famous for countless years and was the leader of the top 10 vicious beasts, was actually raised into a foodie by him. Every time he thought of that round, rolling body, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If the old Kuan-Ping knew about it, he would probably come to the Xian world to kill him on the spot. The Kuan-Ping bloodline was once invincible in the world. Even after the old Kuan-Ping had laid eggs and was extremely weak, it almost uprooted the ancestral land of the Jiaoying clan. One could imagine how fierce it was. He felt ashamed that such a fierce, vicious beast was raised into a foodie by him. He didn't know if the way he opened it was wrong, or if the way he raised it was wrong, or if the Kuan-Ping was actually a foodie when it was young. Anyway, before him, no one had ever caught a wild Kuan-Ping alive and raised it. This kind of ancient, vicious beast, even when it was at its weakest, was not something that ordinary people could provoke. In the eyes of many people, the Jiaoying Demon King's action of plucking a tooth from a tiger's mouth was no different from seeking death. He could be considered the first master of the Kuan-Ping. No one had ever succeeded before. No one knew what the Kuan-Ping was like when it was young. All the Kuan-Pings that people had seen were the ones that could swallow the sky in one gulp after they grew up. Therefore, although he felt that it shouldn't be like this, he had no other choice but to let it go. The most important thing now is to find young Master Gui Yun. No matter what he wants, I must not let him succeed. Chapter 1963. A stern look flashed across Yi Shiwen's eyes. No matter what, young Master Ghost Fortune had tried to attack him several times. He must have regarded Yi Shiwen as someone who must be killed. In that case, Yi Shiwen would not let young Master Ghost Fortune have an easy time. Yi Shiwen was still not strong enough to kill young Master Ghost Fortune, but he would not let young Master Ghost Fortune have an easy time. At least, he could cause trouble for young Master Ghost Fortune. From the words of the old man, Yi Shiwen knew that young Master Ghost Fortune must be planning something big. However, he did not know how far the plan had progressed. It was not easy to snatch food from a profound Death Realm expert's mouth. However, he naturally had something to rely on. Even if he could not snatch food from the tiger's mouth, he was confident that he could retreat safely. Therefore, he wanted to give it a try. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate. He went straight out of the palace and released his divine sense. However, he soon discovered that the entire temple seemed to be shrouded by some strange array. Therefore, he couldn't spread his divine sense too far. He could only spread it out within a radius of 1,000 meters. However, such a small distance wasn't even as far as his naked eye could see. His divine sense was almost completely crippled in this place. He had no choice but to slowly search through the palaces one by one. Along the way, all kinds of dark creatures emerged. Yi Shiwen did not know what kind of cult it was to raise so many dark creatures. It was simply shocking. Yi Shiwen didn't know how long he had been searching. He had encountered many experts of various races along the way. Many people couldn't help but hide in fear when they saw him. It wasn't that no one hadn't seen the battle where he had defeated Niu Sheng. Although he couldn't defeat young Master Gui Yun, it was more than enough to deal with them. There were also some who did not have eyes and wanted to attack Yi Shiwen. However, they were defeated by Yi Shiwen in a few moves. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen heard a commotion. He looked over and saw two groups of 10 people standing opposite each other. On one side were Bai Jiansheng, Yin Ro, and Yi Shan, whom he had just met. On the other side were 7 knights. Each of the 7 knights looked ferocious. Yi Shiwen did not know which clan they were from, but they looked very terrifying. Most importantly, the weakest amongst the 7 knights was actually at the initial profound death stage. Their leader was a powerful existence who had already stepped into the peak of the intermediate profound death stage. He was not inferior to the old man from before. Bai Jiansheng obediently hand over the Hunyuan fruit, and we'll leave your corpse intact. Among the 7 knights, one of them laughed sinisterly as he urged his horse forward. Despicable. You people actually took advantage of Brother Bai's breakthrough to chase after us. Yin Ro angrily rebuked. Little girl, don't be too arrogant. After we kill Bai Jiansheng and this brat, I'll let you know what a real man is. The knight laughed lewdly and cackled. Behind him, the rest of the people began to smirk. You all. Yun Ro was furious, but there was nothing she could do. Every single one of these people was far stronger than her. Even if she used all her strength and joined hands with Yishan, they would not be a match for any one of these 7 people. If Bai Jianxing was still here, there might be a way. However, Bai Jianxing was currently in the midst of a breakthrough and could not move his body at all. Otherwise, his entire body might explode on the spot. Bai Jianxing is in the midst of a breakthrough. Could it be that his Dao injury has already healed? Yi Shiwen was somewhat puzzled. Although he had not witnessed Bai Jianxing's strength, he could tell from the little bit of aura that he had revealed that he was not a simple person. Bai Jianxing had already shaken the entire Xian world 1,000 years ago. If not for his Dao injury, he would most likely be an incomparably powerful existence now. Due to the existence of his Dao injury, it was useless no matter how many treasures he had consumed or how talented he was. Now that he had broken through, there was only one possibility. The Dao injury on his body had already healed. Yi Shiwen was sincerely happy about this. Regardless of whether it was from a personal point of view or from the perspective of the human race, it was a great thing that his Dao injury had been healed. Old 7, don't waste time with him. Bai Jiansheng, if you don't hand over the Hunyuan fruit, don't blame me for being impolite. The leader of the 7 horsemen, who was riding a purple ferocious beast that exuded the power of thunder, stepped forward and said lightly. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and glared angrily. He shouted, "You have actually swallowed the Hunyuan fruit. Damn it. It seems that you haven't swallowed it for long. Brothers, capture him for me. I will put him into the medicine furnace and refine him into a living human medicine. I will refine the medicinal power of the Hunyuan fruit out of his body." 7 cavalrymen of the blood pirates. Why do you have to be so aggressive? We humans are not to be trifled with. Even if you have the immemorial fruit, it's useless. It's a life-saving medicine for Brother Bai, but it shouldn't be of any use to you. Why do you have to be so hostile? Yishan forced himself to calm down and said as he stepped forward. Yishan and Yunro were both well-protected flowers in a greenhouse. In the past, Bai Jianxing had been in charge of everything, so he naturally didn't need to care so much. But now, Bai Jianxing couldn't move at all. He was the only man here, so he had no choice but to step forward and say, "For others, the Hunyuan fruit may be useless. If it was someone else, I might not have to deal with you. After all, the human race is not to be trifled with. I don't necessarily want to be your enemy. However, I am determined to get this Hunyuan fruit. I'm not afraid to tell you that I also have a Dao injury. You should know what a Dao injury means to a warrior. Now, do you still think that I will let you go?" The leader of the 7 horsemen of the blood pirates stepped forward and said indifferently. His eyes were incomparably fierce like those of a wolf. Anyone who looked at him would feel a chill run down their spine. "What? You also have a Dao injury?" Yishan suddenly fell into despair. Although the human race had been suppressed miserably by the demon race, the 7 horsemen of the blood pirates couldn't be compared to them. If the human race was truly enraged, they would send a large number of experts to completely annihilate them. However, that was under normal circumstances. Although a Dao injury wouldn't kill a warrior, it was more terrifying than death. This was because they wouldn't be able to make any progress in their entire life. This was no different from being sentenced to death. Anything that could heal Dao injuries would cause these people to go crazy. For example, Bai Jianxing clearly knew that he might be recognized by young Master Gui Yun and that he might be killed by him, but he still didn't want to give up. He would rather take a huge risk and come back to search for Bai Jianxing. Why? It was because of this Dao injury. Therefore, the 7 horsemen of the blood pirates wouldn't let them go. If Bai Jianxing hadn't swallowed the Hunyuan fruit, then everything would be fine. He might be able to keep his life if he handed over the Hunyuan fruit. However, the Hunyuan fruit had already been swallowed. Given the ruthlessness of the 7 horsemen of the blood pirates, it wasn't impossible for them to refine a living person into a human medicine. No, it should be said that they would definitely do it. Yes, I also have a Dao injury. Therefore, I will never give up on this Hunyuan fruit. The leader of the 7 horsemen of the blood pirates said in a very strange voice, "You should be obedient and go on your way. Old 7, go and send them on their way." The leader of the 7 horsemen of the blood pirates looked at them coldly. as if he was looking at a dead person. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. "No problem, boss. Just watch me." The leader of the 7 horsemen of the Blood Pirates moved his horse forward. A long spear suddenly appeared in his hand. He faced it from a distance and was actually accumulating power. He wasn't in a hurry to attack. He was an expert at the initial profound death realm. It was too easy for him to deal with 2 profound life realm experts. Bai Jianxing couldn't move at all. "Let's fight it out with him." Yun Ro bit her lower lip and said. Her eyes were already filled with despair. Instead of being humiliated by them, it was better to fight a bloody battle. Even if she died in battle, it wouldn't matter. Boom! The 2 of them took the initiative and directly attacked the old 7 of the 7 horsemen of the Blood Pirates. The old 7 of the 7 horsemen of the Blood Pirates didn't panic. He directly stabbed out with his spear. The long spear was like a poisonous dragon drill, instantly breaking through the attacks of the 2 of them. The terrifying power directly bombarded the 2 of them and directly sent them flying. Bang! Bang! The 2 of them were instantly sent flying. They violently smashed into the wall of the Great Hall, creating a huge pit. Only then did they fall to the ground. The difference in strength between the 2 parties was too great. The difference between the profound life stage and the profound death stage was like the difference between heaven and earth. Furthermore, the 2 of them weren't even at the peak of the profound life stage. This difference was simply too great. The old 7 of the 7 horsemen of the Blood Pirates couldn't be bothered to care about the 2 of them. In his heart, the 2 of them were easily killed. It was better to kill Bai Jianxing first to prevent the situation from repeating itself. "Go and die. We'll meet again in our next lives." He stared malevolently at Bai Jianxing, revealing a cruel smile. The long spear in his hand did not stop for even a moment as it instantly rumbled towards Bai Jianxing. Swish! Suddenly, a ray of sword light shot across the sky from a distant place. Like a golden waterfall, it slid down from the sky and directly headed towards the old 7 of the 7 horsemen of the Blood Pirates. Who? The old 7 of the 7 horsemen of the Blood Pirates hastily reacted and raised his spear to block. Clang! An incomparably loud bang sounded. The hands of the old 7 of the 7 horsemen of the Blood Pirates directly exploded on the spot. The incomparably handsome horse under his feet immediately let out a blood-curdling screech. Its 4 hooves were directly broken, and all 4 of its legs were completely broken. It fiercely crashed onto the ground. Chapter 1964. Blood suddenly splashed out. That incomparably spirited horse let out a blood-curdling screech. He was not an ordinary horse. He was also a cultivator. However, under the terrifying, crushing power of this sword, his 4 legs were almost directly broken on the spot. Afterwards, he immediately stopped breathing. The terrifying power had directly crushed all of his organs, and even his soul to smithereens. The mount of the 7th brother of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits had exploded on the spot. One could imagine how powerful and terrifying this attack was. The 7th brother of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits was not much better. Both of his palms had completely exploded. It was as if he had been detonated. He suddenly screamed and lay on the ground. Before everyone could react, they saw another sword light flashing over. It was even faster than lightning. In an instant, another sword light slashed towards the 7th brother of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits. Bang! The 7th brother of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits was chopped in half on the spot. His blood spurted out like a pillar and splashed everywhere. His split body still had an incredulous look on his face. He couldn't believe that this unforeseen event had happened so quickly. He wanted to kill Bai Jianxing as soon as possible to avoid any unexpected events. However, the unforeseen event had indeed happened. All of this happened in an instant. Even the other members of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits didn't have time to react. At this moment, everyone's first reaction was that their scalps were numb. What kind of power was this? Yi Shan and Yun Ro were also completely dumbfounded. Both of them had already given up all hope and had accepted their fate. Who knew that there would suddenly be such an unforeseen event at this time? And most importantly, they couldn't be more familiar with this sword light. They suddenly remembered it. They looked up and sure enough, in the distant void, there was a figure that seemed slow but was actually very fast. He crossed the vast sky and arrived in front of them in an instant. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? Brother Yi! Brother Yi! Both of them suddenly shouted in surprise. They didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would rescue them from the most dangerous situation in their most desperate time. Seventh brother! Seventh brother! Damn it! The 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits finally reacted at this time. They shouted hastily. They were about to go crazy. The 7 brothers had been together for countless years. They were as close as brothers. At this time, seeing their brothers of thousands of years die just like that, they were filled with grief and indignation. Their eyes were wide open, and tears of blood were about to flow out. They were furious to the extreme. They almost instinctively attacked Yi Shiwen on the spot. They wanted to kill him. However, Yi Shiwen didn't even have the interest to say a word to them. He directly chopped out with his sword. This time, it was even faster than before and directly rushed towards one of the experts of the 7 cavalries of Blood Bandits. It was the 4th brother of the Blood Pirates' 7 cavalries. He was the closest to Yi Shiwen and was the first to arrive at this moment. The formidable might of the initial profound death realm landed in front of Yi Shiwen. Bang! Yi Shiwen's sword directly shattered all the defenses on his body. All the defensive instruments on his body were completely shattered in an instant. They could not resist Yi Shiwen's shocking sword at all. Ah! The 4th brother let out a blood-curdling scream. His face was completely pale. He didn't even have the time to react. He wanted to block Yi Shiwen's attack, but it was too late. Puchi! The long sword pierced through the sky and directly drew a shocking line of blood across his neck. Goo-goo! Blood spurted out like a pillar. The 4th brother's head was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's sword. He died on the spot, and the entire scene was dripping with blood. The face of the head that was sent flying by Yi Shiwen was filled with endless fear. In that instant, all the viciousness and anger had disappeared. All that was left was boundless fear. How could someone be so powerful? He was at the peak of the initial profound death realm. How could he be sent flying by a single sword strike? He didn't even have the strength to fight back. How could such a person become an enemy? Everyone was stunned. Even the remaining 5 members of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Bandits were shocked as they roared angrily. In the blink of an eye, another member of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Bandits had died. The 7 of them were as close as brothers and had experienced thousands of battles. They had grown from a nobody to their current level. They had experienced countless hardships. Only these 7 of them were left of the original group, which made their friendship even stronger than gold. They had gone through so many storms and waves. Today, they had actually failed here. They had actually died at the hands of this person. They were simply going crazy. They were furious. All of them roared angrily and charged towards Yi Shiwen again. This time, no one dared to charge like before. As they charged, they threw various kinds of instruments at Yi Shiwen. They were like falling stars from outer space, bringing with them boundless radiance. The radiance was incomparably dazzling as they bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. They had probably never imagined that such a thing would happen. They had always been the ones slaughtering others. Since when could others actually slaughter them? This was simply impossible. Don't let him escape. I want to tear his body into pieces. We must not let him escape. At this moment, the leader of the Blood Bandits' 7 cavalries had already gone completely crazy. He had already fallen into a state of madness after witnessing his 2 brothers, who were as close as brothers, die. He no longer had much rationality left. Otherwise, he would have known what kind of terrifying existence it was to be able to casually kill 2 early profound death stage experts. Who do you think is leaving? Yi Shiwen sneered. Countless long swords began to condense into an incomparably huge sword in his hand, after which it directly collided with the martial arts torrent and instruments of the 5 people. Buried Heaven's sword. Rumble! Amidst a series of violent explosions, the entire horizon was completely shattered by this boundless pressure. The instruments and martial arts torrent that were rushing towards Yi Shiwen were also completely disintegrated by this buried heaven sword. The long sword drew a huge golden line and instantly shattered the sky. Not a single one of them fell. Even the distant palaces could feel the tremors here. It was simply incomparably terrifying. The entire sky was trembling crazily. This sword had almost dissolved all of the attacks into nothingness. It was like a comet crashing into the earth, setting off perilous waves. Damn it, damned human. You actually dared to kill the fourth and seventh brother. I will definitely tear your body into pieces and swallow you alive. The leader of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Bandits opened his ferocious mouth. His mouth was filled with sharp teeth, and a foul stench assaulted everyone's faces. Kill. However, the silence of these people only lasted for a moment. They immediately reacted and rushed towards Yi Shiwen with all their might. All kinds of attacks surrounded Yi Shiwen and bombarded him. 1,000 deaths will not be enough to make up for your sins. The leader of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Bandits let out a huge roar, and an incomparably huge blood blade appeared in his hand. At this time, it tore the heaven and earth apart with a clanging sound. Its power was infinite. He finally attacked. His blade momentum was like a mountain, like a star, and it cleaved downwards. He and the purple thunder beast he was riding on were like devils descending from the sky to kill Yi Shiwen. At this time, he didn't look like a bandit who had been causing trouble for many years. On the contrary, he looked like a general with endless power. Shwa! The blood chi and the saber light covered the sky and the earth, turning into a huge Azura battlefield. Countless screams and screams could be heard in the Azura battlefield. This was his saber intent. It was extremely terrifying. It was unknown how many people he had slaughtered in order to form such a mighty force. At this time, the other members of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Bandits who were attacking Yi Shiwen revealed a look of relief. This was because they knew very well that their leader was many times stronger than them. It wasn't as simple as his cultivation level being higher than theirs. If it wasn't for that damn Dao injury, their leader might have already stepped into the advanced profound death stage. He would have been many times stronger than he was now. Now, even if he hadn't stepped into the advanced profound death stage, an ordinary intermediate profound death stage expert wouldn't even be able to block a single blade attack from him. That was why everyone was so furious. They didn't expect that someone would be able to kill 2 people in front of their leader. This had completely exceeded their expectations. Originally, they thought that their leader would be able to block it in time. Who would have thought that the speed of Yi Shiwen's attack was so fast that no one could react in time? As the blade descended, the sound of space shattering suddenly rang out. Just the pressure from the blade alone had already caused the entire void to explode. This strength was even more terrifying than the old man that Yi Shiwen had just killed. It was as if he had clearly stepped into the advanced profound death stage, but had retreated in the end. Only then would he feel this way. If it was the previous Yi Shiwen, he might not be a match for the Blood Bandits of the Blood Bandits. Even after fusing with the Fist Dao incarnation, he would only be able to barely contend against the Blood Bandits of the Blood Bandits. However, things were different now. Even an intermediate profound death stage expert would find it hard to be a match for him. The heavy sword has no edge. Great skill, but no skill. Buried Earth Sword. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. The long sword in his hand suddenly shot out again. An astonishing sword light shot out to meet the blade. Rumble! An incomparably huge collision sound resounded in the nearby palaces. Many people heard it. Endless shock waves spread out, causing the surrounding walls of the palaces that were fixed by the matrix to begin to tremble violently. One could imagine how terrifying the power of this blow was. Thump, thump, thump. The leader of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Bandits took a few steps back. Chapter 1965. At this moment, it was unknown how many of the arrays in the palace had shattered. If not for the arrays absorbing the shockwaves from the exchange, not to mention the palace itself, the entire palace complex would have collapsed. This was the shockwave from the exchange between 2 terrifying profound death stage experts. Thump, thump, thump. The boss of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits retreated a few steps before he managed to stop himself and unload the force from his feet. The purple thunder beast he was riding on was roaring nonstop, and its legs were trembling. In the collision just now, all the power had poured into its body, and its leg was almost broken on the spot, just like the horse it was riding on. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen's body did not move at all. He was as tyrannical as a devil god that had been resurrected from the ancient times. What? Impossible? How could he block Boss's attack? Furthermore, Boss is actually not his match and is in a disadvantageous position. Just how powerful is his physical body? The 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits were completely stunned. They were completely petrified. This was because no one knew their boss's strength better than them. Within the same realm, they had never seen anyone who could block a single attack from their boss. Even if it was an ordinary intermediate profound death stage expert, they would not be able to deal with them. However, to their boss, they were existences that could be killed with a single slash. This is impossible. We must have seen wrongly. This is simply a joke. An ordinary profound death stage expert would have been cut into two on the spot with that slash. How could this brat take it? That's right. This guy is called Yi Shiwen, right? We have clearly seen him before. His strength should have just entered the profound death stage. It is impossible for him to be Boss's match. How could he be so powerful? The 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Previously, they had seen Yi Shiwen's appearance when he killed Niu Sheng in the Earthen City. Although they had seen it, they did not think that there would be any complications. It was fine that they had seen Yi Shiwen's strength. At that time, their boss was very confident that killing Yi Shiwen would not be a problem at all. Who would have thought that when he really fought, it would be completely different from what they had expected? They were not a match for him at all and were defeated on the spot. Even their boss was at a complete disadvantage and was not a match for him at all. He actually blocked it. He's simply inhuman. While they were discussing, Yi Shiwen had already begun to move. His figure was like a bolt of lightning, constantly shuttling in the void, avoiding their attacks. The martial arts torrent that they had attacked previously could not cause any trouble to Yi Shiwen at all. Whoosh! By the time they reacted, Yi Shiwen had already arrived in front of the 6th brother of the Blood Bandits. The 6th brother of the 7 Blood Bandits didn't even have the time to react. He only saw Yi Shiwen's long sword streaking across the void, directly setting off a bloody flower. A bloody line suddenly appeared on his neck, and blood gushed out like a fountain. His head suddenly flew out, and it didn't look any different from the previous 7 Blood Bandits. One slash, another slash. An initial profound death stage expert died at Yi Shiwen's hands. 6th brother, the remaining 4 members of the 7 Blood Bandits immediately cried out in grief. They had never imagined that things would turn out like this. They had definitely committed many evil deeds in their daily lives and had done countless atrocities. Therefore, they were called the 7 Blood Bandits, meaning that their entire bodies were dyed red with blood. They didn't care about being called the 7 Blood Bandits at all. In fact, they were even somewhat proud of themselves, and had even taken this title as their own. They had always taken pleasure in killing, but they had never taken pleasure in being killed. At this moment, they finally understood the feelings of those who had been exterminated by them. They had watched their companions die tragically in front of them. What was that feeling of despair? What did it feel like to watch their companions die in front of them? What did it feel like? At this moment, Yi Shan and Yin Ro were staring blankly at the golden figure in the void. The peerlessly tyrannical figure didn't have many dazzling sword moves. It was just an ordinary move. It was simple and direct, but its power was so great that it could scare people to death. Its speed was extremely fast, and it was simply as fast as lightning. They finally understood what it meant by speed is unbeatable in all the martial arts under the heavens met. At this moment, Yi Shiwen was like a real Azura who was numb to killing. Originally, when Yi Shiwen said that he had killed at least 8 million demon race experts, they thought that he was joking. 10 million and 8 million demon race experts. How could someone kill so many demon race experts? It wasn't that they hadn't killed people along the way. On the contrary, many people had died in their hands. However, Their strength was far inferior to that of Yi Shiwen and Bai Jianxing. Therefore, their imposing aura was much worse than that of Yi Shiwen and Bai Jianxing. They were like greenhouse flowers. They had never seen such a murderous azura. How many people must he have killed in order to accumulate such a murderous aura? Was this still the same big brother Yi who was laughing and joking with Bai Jianxing in front of them? It was as if he was a completely different person. Perhaps he was not lying when he said that he had killed many demon race experts. It was very likely that he was telling the truth. However, the two of them didn't feel the slightest fear. On the contrary, they were even more excited. The demon race had been bullying the human race in the Xian world for a long time. The conflict between the two races was like a barrel of gunpowder that could explode at any moment. For them, the more they killed, the more heroic they would be. Not to mention, at this time, Yi Shiwen was their only hope for survival. The stronger such a person was, the better it would be for them. The same thought popped up in their minds. Perhaps in their eyes, Brother Bai, who was as brilliant as a god, might not even be as strong as Brother Yi. Yi Shiwen was able to seize the opportunity to kill 3 of them while being besieged by the 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates. Such a battle record was simply amazing. Damn, human, die for me! The leader of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates suddenly became furious. Another one had died in front of his eyes. Not to mention the heartache, his face was burning hot. Killing people in front of him was simply a slap to his face. Buzz! With a loud buzzing sound, the long blade in his hand chopped down once again. It was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. The power of this blade was too great. Condensing all of his power, it was as if a huge moon had appeared. The light was incomparably dazzling, causing people to involuntarily shiver. He was no ordinary profound death stage expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to unleash such a terrifying attack. This extremely brilliant blade seemed as if it had a life of its own. Its radiance was dazzling, and it rushed straight towards Yi Shiwen. Wherever it passed, the space was chopped into 2 halves. It made people feel as if the entire shrine was about to explode. It was completely shattered by this blade that was full of anger. Kill him. Avenge our brothers. When the leader of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates made his move, the others immediately followed suit. They were extremely furious and wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. The pupils of Yi Shiwen's eyes contracted slightly, but his hands didn't slow down at all. His long sword burst out a dazzling sword light and directly met the long saber head-on. Once again, it fiercely collided with the long saber. At this moment, there seemed to be no other sound between the heavens and earth. It was as if the universe had exploded. After a moment of silence, everything exploded in an instant, transforming into shock waves that filled the sky, frantically collapsing towards the void. Under Yi Shiwen's guidance, the shock waves created by such a terrifying collision all blasted towards the remaining 3 members of the Blood Pirates of the Blood Pirates. Bang! 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 They immediately let out muffled groans as their entire bodies were swept by the shock waves. They were directly sent flying, with large holes appearing on their chests. This power was simply shocking and appalling. Just the shock waves of the battle were able to seriously injure a powerful early profound death stage existence. This was unheard of. On the other side, just when Yunro, Yishan, and the others thought that the shock waves were about to sweep towards them, they saw a scroll unfurling, enveloping all of them within it. It was the yin-yang life and death diagram. Countless energy swept towards them, but was unable to break through the defense of the yin-yang life and death diagram. This caused the 2 of them to involuntarily breathe a sigh of relief. Even the early profound death stage Blood Pirates of the Blood Pirates of the Blood Pirates of the Blood Pirates were unable to withstand the shock waves, let alone them. They might have been blasted to death on the spot. At this moment, the boss of the Blood Pirates of the Blood Pirates also let out a muffled groan. The purple lightning beast he was riding on let out a miserable shriek and died on the spot. Blood flowed out from all 7 apertures of its body, while purple blood continuously spurted out from its pores. Blood also flowed out from the corner of the mouth of the boss of the Blood Pirates of the Blood Pirates. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at Yi Shiwen. Although both of them had only exchanged one move, it was an all-out attack. Neither of them had held back at all. Furthermore, the power of the backlash was incomparably terrifying. If not for the fact that he had transferred all the power he had suffered to his mount, he would have been the one bleeding from all 7 apertures of his body and died. Although his mount, which had accompanied him for many years, had died, he did not care about it at all. His own survival was the most important thing. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen, who was standing opposite him, had merely swayed his body slightly before he was able to dissipate all the power. This was an extremely brilliant technique. Moreover, his fleshly body was shockingly powerful. 7 Blood Pirates of the Blood Pirates, I have also heard of your names. You are said to be full of evil and have committed monstrous crimes. Today, I will kill all of you to serve justice on behalf of the heavens. Chapter 1966. Ha ha ha. Enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? What a joke. Yi Shiwen, I admit that I have lost to you this time, but don't use such a ridiculous excuse. Enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? All of us are doing things that go against the heavens. Who would really put the heavens in their eyes? Enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? What a joke. The leader of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits laughed loudly. Blood flowed uncontrollably from the corner of his mouth. It was unknown if his internal organs had been shattered. At this moment, the blood could not stop flowing. You don't understand at all. Going against the heavens? Yi Shiwen chuckled. His eyes became even sharper. For someone like you, no matter how you die, you will not be wronged. You are powerful. You are indeed a character. Today I have lost to a little kid like you. But even if I die, I will drag you down with me. The leader of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits roared with a ferocious look on his face. He had witnessed his brothers die in front of him in just one day. This had greatly stimulated him, and he had desperately mobilized his secret technique. Boom, boom, boom. All the aura on his body suddenly swelled up like a balloon, becoming extremely powerful. Want to turn the tables? With just you? Yi Shiwen did not give him any chance and directly grabbed him with his big hand. Bang! The leader of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits was immediately caught in his hand. With a sudden bang, the leader of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits exploded on the spot. He turned into blood essence that filled the sky and was absorbed by Yi Shiwen. The leader of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits was even more powerful than the old man beside young Master Ge Yun. All of his blood essence was absorbed by Yi Shiwen. Whatever he had lost, it was all replenished in an instant. The leader of the 7 cavalrymen of the Blood Bandits was indeed powerful. An ordinary profound death realm expert could not possibly be his opponent. Even if he had encountered the old man that Yi Shiwen had encountered before, he would not have been defeated. Unfortunately, he had encountered Yi Shiwen. After Yi Shiwen's martial power had increased, it had become boundlessly terrifying. It was far beyond their imagination. If they had condensed martial arts incarnations, they might have been able to fight against Yi Shiwen. But without martial arts incarnations, they wouldn't be able to do anything to Yi Shiwen. With the death of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates, all their wealth had fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. What Yi Shiwen didn't expect was that these 7 cavalries of Blood Pirates were actually much richer than the old man, and from their bodies, Yi Shiwen found more than 4 million xiandong. They had been robbing and robbing for many years and had a terrible reputation in the profound world battlefield. It was unknown just how many experts they had robbed. Even if most of the wealth had been squandered or used for cultivation, even if there was only a little left, it was still an astronomical amount of wealth for ordinary profound death stage experts. Yi Shiwen's mood immediately improved after killing a strong enemy and obtaining a huge amount of wealth. The tens of millions of xiandong that he had consumed previously had been restored by half in the blink of an eye. No wonder the 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates, who relied on robbing and robbing for a living, were actually so rich. Sure enough, a man wouldn't be rich without a windfall, and a horse wouldn't get fat without night grass. However, they had robbed weak warriors, and many a little makes a mickle. Yi Shiwen had directly killed the powerhouses and plundered their wealth. Suddenly, he had become rich overnight. Big Brother Yi, I didn't expect that we would meet again, and that I would be saved by you once again, Yunro said with difficulty. She looked at Yi Shiwen with astonishment in her eyes. She also didn't expect that they would meet Yi Shiwen again so soon, and that they would be saved by him once again. It was really dangerous this time. If not for Big Brother Ye's help, I'm afraid that we would be finished, and all of us would have been wiped out, Yi Shan said, still in a state of shock. It wasn't that their mental fortitude wasn't good, but anyone who had taken a trip to the gates of hell wouldn't be able to calm down so easily. They were already prepared to fight to the death, but who knew that they would be saved by Yi Shiwen again? It could be said that heaven never bars one's way. How did you guys provoke these people? Yi Shiwen asked. He had heard a little about the reputation of the 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates, and it hadn't been long since he came to the profound world battlefield. It could be seen how famous these 7 people were in the profound world battlefield. It's all because of the immemorial fruit, Yunro said. I won't hide it from Big Brother Yi. This time, we came to the temple to find the immemorial fruit. Can the immemorial fruit heal Dao injuries? Yi Shiwen asked. Yes, this kind of heavenly treasure is very difficult to see, and only under some special circumstances, it grows in the chaos. It is very difficult to find it, unless it is a great sect. Otherwise, who would have the manpower and material resources to search for the immemorial fruit in the chaos? Even the human race doesn't have it, and we happen to know from the ancient books that there might be the immemorial fruit in this temple, so we came to try our luck. Who would have thought that there would be it, and Brother Bai ate it? Who would have thought that after that, the 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates also arrived, and they also came to find the immemorial fruit, and as a result, they started fighting, Yunro said. She looked at Yi Shiwen with eyes full of gratitude. If not for Yi Shiwen, she was afraid that they wouldn't have been able to escape this time. This was even more dangerous than the previous incident with Niu Sheng. When facing Niu Sheng, Bai Jiansheng might have some chance of winning, but now that Bai Jiansheng was in closed-door cultivation, facing the fierce 7 cavalries of the Blood Pirates was undoubtedly a matter of survival. Brother Bai's Dao injuries should be healed by now, right? Yi Shiwen looked towards Bai Jiansheng, who was sitting in the middle and had not moved at all. Yes, they have already recovered. Therefore, the cultivation that had been suppressed for 1,000 years suddenly became uncontrollable, and is actually about to make a breakthrough on the spot. Yunro could not help but laugh bitterly. No one had imagined that the cultivation that Bai Jiansheng had suppressed for 1,000 years would actually be so ferocious. It could not be stopped for even a moment, and was about to make a breakthrough to the intermediate profound death stage on the spot. Yi Shiwen came to a sudden realization. This was very normal. Previously, his Dao injuries were like a dam that had stopped a flood. After stopping it for 1,000 years, the power that had accumulated was truly incomparably frightening. Now that his Dao injuries were gone, all of them had erupted in an instant. The accumulated energy allowed him to make a breakthrough to the intermediate profound death stage was simply a matter of course. The only problem was that he had broken through at the wrong time. He had actually managed to break through at this time. I can see that Brother Bai's aura is gradually stabilizing, and he should not be far from making a breakthrough. Since you have already achieved your goal, you should leave quickly. Don't stay any longer. This place is too dangerous, and it is also very strange, Yi Shiwen suggested. Among their group, only Bai Jiansheng had the ability to completely protect himself. The rest were only at the profound life stage, and they would not be able to withstand any unforeseen events. What about Big Brother Yi? Aren't you leaving? Yunro asked. She did not know what Yi Shiwen's goal was, nor did she know if he had completed it. I still have to find that young Master Ghost Luck. Although I do not know what he is doing here, I cannot let him succeed, Yi Shiwen said with narrowed eyes, and a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. Young Master Ghost Luck? Big Brother Yi is looking for him? Yunro never dreamed that the person Yi Shiwen was looking for was actually young Master Ghost Luck. Last time, young Master Ghost Luck had chased them to the ends of the earth, and they were almost killed by him. This had left a very deep impression on her. It was too late to avoid such a terrifying person, and he actually dared to take the initiative to look for him. He was simply crazy. However, she also thought that Yi Shiwen's strength was unfathomable, and he was like a legendary monster. Naturally, he could not be calculated with ordinary logic. Well, that's right. Do you know? Yi Shiwen asked. We just happen to know where he is. You just keep walking inside, and after about the 10th palace, you will see that he is inside. The immemorial fruit that we obtained previously is also there. At that time, we saw him inside, and he seemed to be setting up some kind of formation. At that time, we were discovered, but he did not seem to care about us. Yishan quickly said, at that time, we did not dare to stay for long, so we quickly let Big Brother eat the immemorial fruit and escaped. Then, we encountered the Blood Pirates' 7 cavalries. Around here, Yi Shiwen suddenly felt as if he had worn out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance. Originally, he was worried that he would not be able to catch up. Now, it seemed that he should be able to catch up. Big Brother Yi, the young Master Ghost Fortune, is so dangerous. Are you really going to find trouble with him? Yishan said with some worry. Naturally, Yi Shiwen did not look for young Master Ghost Fortune to catch up with him. The only possibility was that Yi Shiwen was going to find trouble with him. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen's strength was extremely strong and far exceeded their strength. However, there was still no comparison between him and young Master Ghost Fortune. After all, that was a terrifying existence in the late profound death realm. Well, that's right. If I didn't know, it would be fine. Now that I know, how can I not go and take a look? Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Previously, he chased us to the point where we had nowhere to go. If we don't return such kindness to him, wouldn't it seem like we don't understand etiquette? But don't worry, I naturally have a way to escape. I won't die in his hands. Yi Shiwen could see their worry and could not help but smile. All right, you guys guard Brother Bai. When he wakes up, quickly take him away. This is not a place to stay for long. As Yi Shiwen spoke, his figure was already impatiently flying towards the depths of the palace complex. Young Master Ghost Fortune, I want to see what you are up to. Chapter 1967. Yi Shiwen had just approached the palace when he heard a sharp and unpleasant roar coming from within. Damn mortal! How dare you encroach on my domain? My domain? A god? Yi Shiwen's expression suddenly became dignified. This was the domain of the gods. In other words, there was a god involved here. It would be easy to deal with any ordinary situation. However, things would become much more complicated if a god was involved. Even though he had a history of deceiving a god, he still didn't dare underestimate a god. A mythical realm entity was already a powerful existence that exceeded his imagination. Even the Divine Union leader and the Abyssal Demon Master were only at the peak of the mythical realm. However, even the weakest god could easily defeat powerful existences like the Abyssal Demon Master and the Divine Union leader. In theory, no mortal life form could challenge even the weakest of life forms. Mortals, no matter how long-lived they were, had their own limits. They would pass away after 100,000 years or 10,000 years. Gods, on the other hand, were immortal. There were plenty of gods who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. Based on the legends of the distant past, it was easy to tell that to them, a nap could take tens of thousands of years. That was the lifespan of a god myth. Even if one didn't take into account other things, just the accumulation of time was enough to widen the gap between a god and a mortal. Provoking the dignity of a god wasn't something an ordinary person would dare to do. Even a mythical realm powerhouse was only a powerful creature. However, this powerful creature was so powerful that one didn't even have the qualifications to look up to it. If Yi Shiwen hadn't had Yi Mo's advice, he would have left rather than choose to make a deal with a god or even deceive a god. Now, someone actually dared to provoke a god? Was it young Master Yin? Yes, Yi Shiwen immediately deduced. His spirit sense couldn't extend more than a kilometer here, so it wouldn't help at all. Even if he could, he wouldn't have chosen to do so. After all, The two people inside could have discovered his whereabouts. Yishuan didn't use his spirit sense immediately. Instead, he quietly arrived at the side of the hall and chose a corner. This hall was completely different from the other halls. In the center of this hall, there was a large statue of a deity. It looked very gloomy, and its appearance was actually the image of a little demon. It was no different from the undying blood creatures outside. It's a demon god. Yimo's voice appeared in Yi Xuan's mind. I didn't expect to see a demon god here. Yi Xuan's expression was awe-inspiring. There were thousands of races in the heavens and the 10,000 worlds. Among them, there were many races that had produced gods. And the human race, the demon race, and the devil race had produced the most gods. Among the demon race, there were many complicated races, but those that could establish themselves had more or less produced existences of the demon god level. And among the 8 great royal clans, there were even a few clans that had produced existences of the demon lord level, ruling the world and conquering the myriad worlds. Among the demon race, there were many complicated races. All of them had more or less demon god level existences. Among the 8 royal families, there were several clans that had demon lord level existences. They ruled the world and conquered the universe. And this statue was actually able to open its mouth and speak in a vivid and lifelike manner. Yishuan finally realized that this cult that worshipped the gods was actually a devil cult, and not a cult like he had previously guessed. This was even more troublesome than a cult. Moreover, this statue could actually open its mouth and speak. Yishuan finally knew that this religion that worshipped the god was actually a demon religion. It wasn't a cult like he had guessed before. This was even more troublesome than a cult. He didn't understand the means of the gods. Even if it was a sleeping god, it was still alive. If it wasn't dead, it could still fight back. Moreover, even if it was dead, it might leave behind a lot of trouble, just like the Death Lord and the Darkness Lord. Around the statue, there was a huge array that was constantly revolving around it. As the array roared and operated, the golden threads on the statue were stripped away and fell directly into the body of a man sitting cross-legged beside the array. Who else could it be but young Master Ghost Luck? Yi Xuan recognized those strands of golden silk threads almost at once. They were divinities. He didn't know much about divinities. He couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air. Young Master Ge Yun was actually absorbing the divinity of the god statue. He could feel that the god statue was already stained with divinity after being worshipped for so many years. Moreover, it was very dense. Young Master Ghost Luck actually had this idea. Yi Xuan, if he really succeeds, I'm afraid no one will be able to stop him in the future. Yimo's voice came over. Young Master Ghost Luck isn't absorbing divinity. Instead, he's using a secret technique to absorb the divinity that represents the luck of the gods. Don't underestimate the luck of the gods. Gods who are known to be immortal also have luck. Otherwise, there wouldn't be people who fall and live forever. However, no matter which god it is, even the worst one has a much greater luck than a mortal. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to become a god. Even if a god has fallen or is in a deep sleep, their luck is still terrifyingly large compared to a mortal. If he can absorb a small portion of it, his luck will skyrocket. When that time comes, no one will be able to stop him, and the true horror of the Ghost Luck clan will be revealed. Yishuan nodded. Even if he didn't understand anything, he could understand that the current situation was very serious. The relationship between him and young Master Ghost Luck was already irreconcilable. It was either he or I die. Ha ha! The entire hall was filled with young Master Ge Yun's maniacal laughter. He laughed until he felt like he was suffocating. Only then did he stop. A god is only so. After I devour your luck, I will become a new god, the god of luck. Wishful thinking, despicable mortal. You are just a mortal. Yet you want to dip your fingers into the divine land and invade the domain of the gods. The statue roared, but there was no way to fight back. Because the main body was in a deep sleep, its strength was already very low. Moreover, it was trapped by this formation. So what if I'm a mortal? Aren't you all just mortals before you become gods? Young Master Ghost Luck said indifferently. Aren't you closer to death now? So don't be stingy. Lend me some strength. If I become a god in the future, I might have a chance to save you from the endless sea of stars. Young Master Ghost Luck said indifferently. Wishful thinking. Is the luck of the gods something that you can dip your fingers into? No wonder your clan is going to be exterminated by the great Devil King. You are too wishful thinking. You want to obtain many things that shouldn't belong to you at all. The statue of the little devil was still roaring crazily. No, I don't think this is wishful thinking. It's just that you are not strong enough. If my clan had an Emperor King at that time, who would dare to compete with my clan? Young Master Ghost Luck said coldly. The world says that my clan is despicable, but who knows that our clan is born with bad luck? We are abandoned by the heavens and earth. Since the heavens and earth have abandoned us, we can only fight for our own future. I was left in a human city since I was a beggar. I had to fight with others and even fight with wild dogs for food. Do you know what that feels like? If I hadn't awakened the memories of my clan, I might have been born with bad luck like my ancestors. I would have died of illness and disability at a young age. However, I awakened my bloodline and learned how noble I am. I first absorbed the luck of everyone in the beggar's den and watched them get bitten to death by a group of wild dogs in the next second. Ha ha ha, you don't understand that feeling. Then I absorbed the luck of the entire city. After absorbing the luck of those people, my cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. Then, they were suddenly attacked by demonic beasts and slaughtered. Tens of millions of people were wailing in agony. That scene was too beautiful. I walked step by step like this. I never believed that anyone would give me anything. If others don't give it to me, I will personally fight for it. Everything I want belongs to me. There are no exceptions. Young Master Ghost Luck said with a sinister expression. So, what if you're a god? You're just a has-been god. You want to act mighty in front of me? Dream on? Young Master Ghost Luck said coldly. Being able to be absorbed by me is your luck. You're very lucky. Lowly mortal, you will definitely pay the price, the stone statue roared. Stop struggling. It's useless. I have already sealed all the space channels around here. It's impossible for you to send a projection here. Young Master Ghost Luck said coldly. He was known as Young Master Ghost Luck because his luck was heaven-defying. However, it depended on who he was compared to. Even if it was a dying god, his luck was invincible against mortals. What was luck? It was when two people's strength was similar. When they were about to fight, the heavens would secretly help them. Scheming against a god was not something an ordinary person could do. One had to be meticulous, otherwise they might be devoured by the gods. What's more, I'm afraid your vitality will be greatly damaged after using a projection. Why bother? This little bit of luck is nothing to you. You might as well help me achieve my goal. Young Master Ghost Luck said calmly. Lowly mortal, I will use this to help you achieve your goal. I won't leave anything for you. The little devil god continued to roar. His voice spread throughout the entire palace, causing the palace walls to tremble. Young Master Ghost Luck ignored the roar of this god. Instead, he muttered to himself, why is there still no news after so long? Could it be that you still haven't obtained the heads of Yishiwen and Bai Jianxing? Your efficiency is so slow. When you return, this young master will suck half of your chi as punishment. Young Master Ge Yun said coldly, I don't think you have a chance. Chapter 1968. I don't think you have a chance. A cold voice came from behind him, and then an astonishing saber aura rose from behind him. Who is it? Young Master Ge Yun yelled, and a panicked expression appeared on his face. Even he didn't expect that someone would appear from behind him. He felt that the voice was very familiar, but he didn't know who it was for a moment. However, the most terrifying thing was that he was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Although he looked rather relaxed, he couldn't move at all because he had to control the entire formation. He didn't want to give up this good opportunity, so he couldn't help but struggle in his heart. At this moment, while he was struggling, the opportunity that he had to dodge completely disappeared in an instant. Crash! A deafening roar came from behind him. He spread out his divine will and clearly saw an earth-shattering saber chi forming in the air. Then, It blasted towards him like a hot knife through butter. Almost in an instant, the entire world collapsed into pieces, and the direction of the shattering spread directly towards him. At this moment, he wanted to dodge, but it was too late. He could only let the saber slash his body. Bang, bang, bang! A series of intense explosions erupted from young Master Gue Yun's body. All the defensive artifacts on his body collapsed in an instant. In the face of this terrifying saber aura that could kill immortals and gods, they couldn't withstand a single blow. This was a saber that had condensed almost all of his power. Boom! In the end, the saber chi still fiercely slammed into his body, immediately forming a huge mushroom cloud that rose up with a loud bang. Even the atoms had been completely obliterated, erupting with world-shaking power. In this huge mushroom cloud, a figure was thrown out like a cannonball. Half of his body was completely festered, and his flesh was badly mutilated. No matter how profound his cultivation was, he was still almost killed when he was hit by the saber. If it wasn't for the divinity he absorbed at the last moment to block the attack for him, he would have died without a burial place. However, it was also because of this that the divinity and luck he had absorbed before collapsed instantly, turning into useless efforts. At this moment, he finally saw clearly who the guy who sneak attacked him was. It turned out to be him. It turned out to be Yi Shiwen. At this time, he finally understood why he had such a shocking sense of danger when he was chasing after Yi Shiwen. He even had a feeling that he might be killed if he continued to chase after Yi Shiwen. Now he finally understood what the problem was. The long saber in his hand exuded a terrifying power that made him feel terrified. At this moment, he finally understood why his subordinates hadn't returned yet. He was afraid that they had been completely killed by now. "It's actually you." As he spoke, he kept spitting out blood. Today, he was completely defeated by Yi Shiwen. Under normal circumstances, even if he was sneak attacked, he wouldn't have the slightest power to retaliate. You definitely didn't expect that the guy who you have never taken seriously would actually be able to injure you so severely one day. Yi Shiwen slowly walked in from outside the palace, one step at a time. "You have completely angered me. I definitely won't let you go. I definitely won't," young Master Ghost Fortune said with a crazy expression. Ever since he started his career, he had never suffered such a huge loss. He almost turned into ashes. "Wait until you can live for another day," Yi Shiwen said lightly. Swish! Suddenly, an astonishing power erupted from young Master Ghost Fortune's body. His entire body was like a meteor directly leaping out of the palace. In an instant, he had already disappeared from Yi Shiwen's perception. During this process, Yi Shiwen didn't move at all. It wasn't that he didn't want to stop young Master Ghost Fortune, but he simply couldn't do anything. Although young Master Ghost Fortune was seriously injured, Yi Shiwen wasn't any better. The power of the saber just now was so terrifying that it directly sucked out all the chi in his body, turning him into a cripple in an instant. Although he still had the tyrant golden form, it wasn't as if he didn't have the strength to fight back. With just his physical body alone, ordinary profound death realm experts wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, it was impossible for him to stop young Master Ghost Fortune. Even if he was seriously injured, he couldn't help but frown. He had miscalculated. Initially, he thought that he could finish off young Master Ghost Fortune with one slash. Who knew that young Master Ghost Fortune would use his divinity to block the attack at the crucial moment? This caused him to only be seriously injured, but not killed. He couldn't help but feel a little regretful. However, he was also a little glad that he had arrived early. Otherwise, if he had continued to absorb the divinity, he was afraid that this slash wouldn't even be able to injure him, let alone seriously injure him. He understood the power of divinity too well. Wasn't his tyrant golden form just like that? However, the good thing was that young Master Ghost Fortune wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time after being seriously injured by him. Not to mention, his harvest this time was probably completely annihilated by that slash just now. Whatever he had eaten, he would have to spit it out twice as much. However, in just a short period of time, the chi in his body had recovered a little with the help of the Phoenix regeneration technique. He could barely fight back. "Human, as long as you let me go, I can give you whatever you want." At this moment, the statue spoke. He had witnessed the entire process of the battle between Yi Shiwen and young Master Ghost Fortune. He thought that the opportunity had finally come. "I don't want anything else. I just want all the divinity in this statue of yours." Yi Shiwen grinned. If he could absorb all the divinity in the statue, his tyrant golden form would undoubtedly rise to another level. If it was said that his tyrant golden form was a little insufficient to contend against top profound level weapons, then after absorbing all the divinity, it could be said that he could almost completely contend against these top profound level weapons with his bare hands. In other words, it was simply impossible to injure him with just one shot like the previous old man. He immediately sat cross-legged on young Master Ge Yun's seat and began to carefully comprehend it. After spending millions of Xian Dawn, he had already deduced all the subtleties of this formation. Although this formation was exquisite, it was nothing for Yi Shiwen, who had deduced the Ghost Heart Flame formation before. After deducing the Ghost Heart Flame formation, Yi Shiwen's level of formation had simply advanced by leaps and bounds. He had long reached the level of a great master. Even without the deduction of the mysterious space, he could also deduce it by himself. It was just that it would take a lot of time. This formation could actually strip the divinity from the statue. The mysteries behind it were naturally extraordinary. After Yi Shiwen deduced it, he felt that he had made great gains in the formation. "Despicable, you lowly mortal! You are exactly the same as the previous one." The huge statue roared, but there was no other way. Because of the formation left by young Master Ghost Fortune, it had been firmly binding it, making it unable to move at all. Yi Shiwen didn't pay attention to the roar of the statue. Instead, he continued to operate the observing person scripture. The divinity in his body also boiled up in an instant. It formed a huge universe around him, forming a huge vortex. The divinity of the statue turned into a golden silk thread and was absorbed by Yi Shiwen. Soon, his whole body became like a silkworm cocoon and was surrounded by endless golden silk threads. Yi Shiwen was crazily absorbing these divinities. These divinities could only be produced and refined by the gods. Now, a layer of intense golden light had formed on the surface of Yi Shiwen's body and was constantly being absorbed into his body. The originally fixed, gilded tyrant form actually began to show signs of a breakthrough. Little by little, it was transforming in a more powerful direction. The divinity itself belonged to the gods, and only the gods could use this kind of power. Yi Shiwen seemed to be faintly emitting the radiance of divinity after absorbing this divinity into his body. It seemed as if he was a god sitting cross-legged in cultivation. He looked incomparably holy. Beside him, the statue continued to roar continuously, but it was useless. Young Master Ghost Fortune was still interested in talking to him, but Yi Shiwen had no interest in talking to him at all. He only cared about constantly absorbing divinity to strengthen the power of his gilded tyrant form. His gilded tyrant form had almost reached a bottleneck. His gilded tyrant form was already a perfect existence. If he wanted to go further, it would only be possible if his cultivation advanced a step further. However, the gilded tyrant form was different. If he had enough divinity, he would even dare to challenge the mythical figures and not be killed. This deity was completely enraged. He was flustered and exasperated. Although many powerful warriors didn't regard deities as existences of the heavens and earth, no matter what they thought, it was rare to see someone who dared to provoke a deity face to face. Not to mention, it was even rarer to find someone who dared to plunder a deity face to face. Today, he actually encountered two in one go. How bad was his luck? Could it be that his luck had really been exhausted? However, no matter how he roared, as the divinity was slowly absorbed, the statue that was full of divinity also lost its spirituality bit by bit. Finally, it completely became an ordinary statue. In the main hall, only his loud and angry roar echoed. Chapter 1969. After a long time, Yi Shiwen finally opened his eyes and stood up. His entire body was shining with golden light, and he looked like a golden god. All the golden divinity on this statue had been completely absorbed by him. He could feel that the strength of his gilded tyrant form had increased to a higher level. Originally, he might have been injured when facing a top-notch Xian weapon, but now he could completely resist it. It was simply another level up. Boom! With a loud bang, the array in front of him suddenly collapsed. At this moment, a terrifying divine sense descended from the sky and directly probed in. It turned into a huge scarlet eye. Yi Shiwen, hurry up and leave. This demon god is no longer restrained by the array. It's going to directly project an incarnation. Yi Mo hurriedly reminded. Young Master Ge Yun had set up an array formation to seal off the nearby space, so the Fiend Celestial wouldn't be able to fly over no matter how angry he was. However, now that the array formation was broken, he could directly sense this place. Even though the projection would greatly damage his vitality, he couldn't care less about it. He had already been blinded by anger. He must make these two lowly mortals pay the price. Whoosh! The space was like the surface of the water. It was like the surface of boiling water. It quickly fluctuated and expanded in all directions. Then, a huge devil's claw fell from the sky and directly grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. Lowly mortals die. Accompanied by an angry roar, the demon claw directly crushed the entire palace into pieces. Whoosh! When Yi Shiwen reappeared, he was already in another palace. Behind him, a pair of wind and thunder wings were constantly flapping. He couldn't help but feel some lingering fear. He was almost killed by this devil's claw just now. This boundless and terrifying pressure reminded him of the feeling when he was chased by the Abyss Demon Master. He couldn't help but gasp. The Abyss Demon Master was a top-notch figure in the myth realm. This god was just a projection, and yet he already had such terrifying strength. Sure enough, everyone under the god was an ant. There was an obvious watershed between Dao validation and not Dao validation. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. This was the result of the wrath of a god who was close to death. Provoking a real god was so terrifying that it wasn't something that Yi Shiwen could bear now. However, these thoughts were only slightly filtered in his mind. He didn't dare to stay at all, and immediately fled in the direction of the exit. Boom! 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 That huge demonic hand kept bombarding down. The terrifying power directly caused the world to collapse completely. The beautiful and magnificent temple also completely collapsed under the wrath of the demonic hand and turned into dust. The speed of that devil's hand was very fast. It constantly stretched out from the void space channel and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to grab him. Yi Shiwen's speed wasn't slow either. He was like a golden lightning. He was always able to dodge this dreadful claw attack by a hair's breadth. The consumption of a projection was too great. For a god who was on the verge of death, this was akin to taking his life. In the end, he decided to only create a single hand. For an ordinary profound death realm expert, a single hand was enough to crush a group of people to death. However, it was a pity that Yi Shiwen wasn't an ordinary profound death realm expert. His speed was extremely fast, and he was actually able to avoid the attack of the huge demon claw. Yi Shiwen was somewhat glad that he didn't send his entire projection. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to escape from a furious myth realm figure. Yi Shiwen easily avoided it, but the others weren't so lucky. The people who were still searching for treasures in the various palaces were instantly caught in the crossfire. In an instant, the entire palace collapsed, and the endless space shattered. They didn't even have time to react before they died miserably. They were existences at the profound life realm or profound death realm. In the outside world, they were all big shots in the mysterious world. However, at this moment, they were no different from ants. In the face of a furious god, no one could stop their anger. Boom! 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 After a series of loud explosions, the entire palace collapsed one after another. The void was completely shattered. In fact, Yi Shiwen could even feel the space trembling. The entire space of this plane felt as though it was about to shatter. When such a terrifying existence was enraged, the entire space, the entire small plane, felt as though it was on the verge of collapsing. In just a few breaths' time, Yi Shiwen had already flown out of the palace. The devouring heaven-swallowing beast, which was originally extremely arrogant and invincible, was nowhere to be seen. It was unknown if it had sensed the aura of the furious god, but at this moment, it was hiding and trembling. On long, long, long. The huge hand continued to chase after him. Everywhere it passed, the space would collapse. There was no way for it to even gather. After leaving the palace, the space that Yi Shiwen could move around in had become wider and wider. The tyrannical power of the wind and thunder wings had also become more and more flexible. After a long time, the devil hand finally vented its anger. In other words, it could no longer support such a huge consumption. Finally, it disappeared without a trace. However, the entire plane had been almost destroyed. It was almost on the verge of collapse. Such a frightening figure was an existence that could even penetrate through a plane. As for those profound realm experts, not to mention it was unknown how many of them had died. Even if it wasn't a complete annihilation, it was basically the same. Except for those who had left in advance, it was basically a complete annihilation. This was the horror of the profound realm battlefield. In the profound world, it could even be said to be the place with the highest concentration of profound realm experts in the entire universe. The survival of a king stage expert was already enough to shake the world. It was also very difficult for a profound realm expert to protect himself here. Yi Shiwen sighed and did not stay for long. This time he had gained too much. He needed to find a place to properly digest it. However, the matter here was not over yet. Traces of gods had appeared in this plane. For the various experts and sects, it was earth-shattering news. They had worked hard for thousands of years, even tens of thousands of years. What was it for? Wasn't it all for the sake of becoming a god like their predecessors? As long as there was a little bit of news about gods, it was enough to make them go crazy. Of course, if it was an intact god, they would not have the guts to provoke the dignity of a god. However, if it was a god that was about to fall, then it was different. The news spread as the plane was about to collapse. Originally, it was just a rumor of unknown origin that there were traces of deities here. Not many people believed it, or rather, the true mainstays of the plane, the peak profound death realm, and even the myth realm experts did not take this matter to heart. However, as the news spread, the signs of gods taking action became more and more obvious. More and more experts rushed over. If they could become gods, then even if they were gods, they would dare to kill them. Although none of them could pose a threat to gods, when their numbers reached a certain level, it would be a very terrifying thing. Moreover, there was no lack of top myth realm experts among them. Such people already had the means to threaten the gods that were about to fall. This was also the reason why, even though everyone knew that the gods still existed in this world, they didn't know where they were sleeping, but ordinary people hadn't even heard of them. The gods that were in hibernation usually meant that they were close to falling. Such gods were usually very careful in hiding themselves in their own divine kingdom, waiting for the day when they could recover and wake up again in the future. These gods usually acted very carefully. If they were not careful, it was very likely that they would be directly slaughtered. That would not be worth it. If these ferocious fellows found out where they were sleeping, then it would be the time when they would truly fall. Even if they suffered heavy losses and countless myth realm experts fell, they would definitely not let a true god go. Unless this true god had created an immortal legacy, then no one would dare to provoke him. Countless experts swarmed over, and it was said that there were even myth realm experts fighting each other. Because of that, the already fragile world was completely destroyed. As for the sand-swallowing, heaven-swallowing beast, it was said that it was also taken away by a myth realm expert. These things spread little by little over the next 2 months. More and more people began to know about this god sect. There were even records of this god sect in many ancient inheritances. The appearance of gods was no longer just empty talk. It was a fact. This stimulated many experts to start rushing over. Of course, with so many top experts fighting, the plane that had been ravaged by the gods finally couldn't stand it anymore. It completely collapsed, and the fragments fell into the endless chaos. This completely stopped people from looking for the god through this plane. However, there was also news that some people came early and found the sleeping place of this god through some clues. It was very likely that this would evolve into a god-slaying war. In the midst of this turbulent news, Yi Shiwen was also on the way to Moonfall City. He would not be able to make it in time for the battle with Diwu Xian. However, he did not intend to give up. A peerless Heaven's Pride expert of the same realm was the best whetstone to test his gains during this period of time. The battle was about to start. Chapter 1970. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Yi Shiwen could finally return to Moonfall City. Compared to when he had left in a hurry and was in a slightly sorry state, there had been earth-shattering changes even though it had only been a few months since his return. 3 months ago, he had just broken into the profound death stage. Now he had already reached the peak of the profound death stage. Now that he thought about it, it had only been a few months. Time had changed. Now, even if he were to face Elder Xian Ting again, he would no longer be in such a sorry state and be powerless to fight back. However, this was far from enough. Even if his strength had improved, he was still not strong enough to deal with Elder Xian Ting. The matter of forming a sword principal incarnation had to be put on the agenda. He could consider it after his battle with Diwu Xian. Once he formed a sword principal incarnation, even if he had yet to reach the profound death stage, he would no longer need to fear ordinary profound death stage experts. Forming a martial principal incarnation and forming 2 martial principal incarnations was a huge breakthrough. The further one progressed, the greater the disparity would be. That was also the reason why the myriad body transformations technique was so precious. 9 clones was probably enough to shake the heavens and earth. Even amongst the techniques of the various gods, it was more than enough to stand at the top. This was the foundation that Yi Shiwen had relied on to compete with the various geniuses and widen the gap between him and them. According to Yi Mo's plan, every time he formed a martial principal incarnation, his strength would widen the gap between him and the peerless geniuses. In the end, the gap would be so big that it would be enough to destroy all of his opponents. The further he cultivated, the more important this body multiplication technique became to him. For Luoyue City, after Yi Shiwen's departure, these 3 months were also very lively. Many people came and went. Many geniuses came and engraved their names on the steel. Then, they were forced to leave in a hurry because of the 1-month restriction order. Many of the most talented geniuses were here, and they truly shone with boundless light. Among them, Yi Shiwen was undoubtedly one of the bright spots. Although he only stayed in Luoyue City for a month, and most of the time he was still practicing. He seemed to be very low-key, but it did not mean that his reputation in Luoyue City was small. On the contrary, his reputation in Luoyue City was not small at all. The reason was because of the Heaven Desolate Palace. Originally, the people of the Heaven Desolate Palace thought that they could easily capture Yi Shiwen and force him to hand over the quota, or directly kill him and snatch the quota. In fact, many people of other forces also thought so. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would severely injure Elder Xian Ting in that earth-shattering battle 3 months ago? Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would be the first to do so? With his mid-profound death stage cultivation, he was actually able to seriously injure late-profound death stage experts. This battle caused his name to resound throughout the world. In the battle that made him famous, he had merely killed a few early profound death stage experts. In the eyes of many top experts, this was simply nothing. However, this battle caused those top experts to have a whole new level of respect for Yi Shiwen. In a situation where mythological figures rarely appeared, peak profound death stage experts were already the top experts. Below them, the most powerful experts were naturally the late profound death stage experts. As a member of this group of top experts, they were actually seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. This was simply shocking. In other words, Yi Shiwen actually possessed the ability to threaten these top experts. This couldn't be taken lightly. As these people paid more attention to Yi Shiwen's reputation naturally became more resounding. Therefore, although he did not leave his name on the stone tablet and challenge experts from various places like those previous experts, his reputation was not weak at all. In particular, the battle agreement between him and Daewoo Hardhearted had been spread like wildfire. Many people knew that he and Daewoo Hardhearted had agreed to battle before. Therefore, whether Yi Shiwen would show up or not became a hot topic. Some people felt that it was impossible for him to appear. This was because at that time, the Heaven Wasteland Hall had practically adopted a stance of wanting to kill him. They had sent many experts over and surrounded the martial arts arena. As the 3 months had not passed, the martial arts arena was placed outside. Therefore, it was completely surrounded by the experts of the Heaven Wasteland Hall. Seeing such a lineup, even those who had the most confidence in Yi Shiwen felt that it was absolutely impossible for him to appear. Indeed, things were just as they had expected. Yi Shiwen did not appear on the martial arts arena, causing everyone to wait for a day and a night in vain. However, although some people slandered Yi Shiwen because of this, he was actually timid and did not dare to show up. He could not be considered a hero. However, there were also many people who stood on his side. In such a situation, how many people would dare to follow him in? At that time, there were more than a dozen late profound death stage experts present. There was even a peak profound death stage expert from the Heaven Wasteland Hall eyeing him covetously from the side. There were countless other profound death stage and profound life stage experts. With such a lineup, those who did not know would think that they were going to deal with a legendary expert. If it was anyone else, they would not appear to die unless they had absolute confidence. Otherwise, appearing here would not be courage but idiocy. If he only had this kind of courage, it would be impossible for him to live to this point. There were also many people who felt that the Heaven Wasteland Hall was too ostentatious at the beginning, which scared them away. If they had hidden from the beginning and waited for Yi Shiwen to appear, they would definitely be able to capture them in one fell swoop. In short, there were all kinds of opinions for a while, and it had completely become a mess. However, as time passed, this topic that had recently exploded, along with the departure of Daewoo Hardhearted and Yi Shiwen not appearing, gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. However, just as everyone was gradually forgetting about this matter, Yi Shiwen appeared again in a high-profile manner. It was actually not too appropriate to say that he appeared in a high-profile manner, because he had not been too high-profile at all. It was just that in these few months, as his matter had caused an uproar, his whereabouts had always been the focus of everyone's attention. Almost as soon as he appeared, he had already been discovered by the spies of the major forces in the city. Almost all of a sudden, everyone's emotions exploded. No one thought that when everyone thought that he would not appear, he would actually appear. Where did he go in the past few months? They would never have thought that Yi Shiwen was not frightened by the people of the Heaven Wasteland Hall, but did not rush over at all. At that time, he was consolidating the realm that he had just broken through. It was only now that he had completely consolidated his cultivation at the peak of the profound death realm middle stage. Only then did he have the mood to come out and meet the appointment. Although he was a few months late, it did not matter to him. If Daewoo Hardhearted did not make any progress in these few months, it would be a waste of his efforts. He must be crazy. Does he think that the people of the Heaven Wasteland Hall can do nothing to him in Moonfall City? As long as they surround Moonfall City, it will be the time of his death when he wants to leave again a month later. Yes, although most of the people of the Heaven Wasteland Hall have already left, it will only take a short while for them to rush back. Unless he leaves immediately, the people of the Heaven Wasteland Hall will definitely gamble with him. I don't think so. Since he dared to return at this time, he must have something to rely on. He is not a reckless person. Otherwise, I'm afraid he would have already returned. No matter what, he is finally back. I've been looking forward to his battle with Daewoo Hardhearted for a long time. As the saying goes, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. He has given us a huge surprise before. This time, I will definitely not let go of such an opportunity. Who knows, I might even be able to pick up some treasures. For a moment, the entire Moonfall City was in chaos because of Yi Shiwen's return. It seemed that everyone was watching the clash between the two parties. Compared to the clash between Yi Shiwen and Diwu Hard-Hearted, the clash between Yi Shiwen and the Heaven Wasteland Hall, and even the Divine Union, was more attractive. Everyone wanted to see what Yi Shiwen was relying on to dare to return to Luoyu City at such a critical time. There were still a few years before the nameless Dao College truly opened. For ordinary people, entering Moonfall City was tantamount to obtaining protection. At the very least, they would be able to take a breather for a month. However, for Yi Shiwen, this was tantamount to seeking his own death. This was because there were too many people watching him, and they were not ordinary people. The Divine Union, the Heaven Wasteland Hall, the Heavenly Cloud City, and a series of other major forces who coveted his quota. Their roots were intertwined with each other, and they involved the behemoths that ruled the entire mysterious world. If an ordinary person were to face any one of them, it would be a hopeless situation. However, Yi Shiwen had actually been able to survive ever since he had offended the Divine Union. This had to be considered a miracle. It was a great miracle. For a moment, everyone rushed to the battle arena in the center of the city. There, Yi Shiwen was already quietly waiting for Diwu Hard-Hearted to receive the news and rush back. Diwu Hard-Hearted finally lived up to Yi Shiwen's expectations. In less than half a day, he had already received the news and rushed back from the outside world. Compared to a few months ago, the current Diwu Hard-Hearted was even more outstanding. He was like an unsheathed sword that gave off the illusion of a sharpness that could behead everyone. You are finally back. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Chapter 1971. You're finally back. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Diwu Hard-Hearted looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a serious expression. He did not have any emotions because Yi Shiwen stood him up last time. For him, this was not important. The extra few months were also very important to him. You're much stronger than you were a few months ago, Yi Shiwen said to Diwu Hard-Hearted. Compared to a few months ago, Diwu Hard-Hearted had undergone a tremendous change. He was more than twice as strong. If it was the Yi Shiwen from a few months ago, he would not have been able to deal with the current Diwu Hard-Hearted. But in these few months, he did not stagnate. Right now, he needed a strong opponent to verify his progress in these few months. Diwu Hard-Hearted did not answer. Instead, he looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "You have to think this through. I will not be merciful. If you die, don't blame me." He felt a sense of extreme danger from Yi Shiwen's body. This feeling was different from anyone he had met before. So, even he was not confident that he could defeat Yi Shiwen if he was merciful. A situation like the werewolf hunter from before would not happen again. But he was still very confident in himself. He was no longer the same as before. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the two of them. The battle between the two of them had been known since a few months ago. However, it was only now that the agreement between the two of them had been fulfilled. No matter who won or lost, it would become big news in the Xian world. No matter what kind of opinions people had, they had to admit that these two, no matter who it was, had the qualifications to be the strongest. At least, the top young geniuses had not fought face to face yet. Many of the strong and weak were their own judgments and had not been recognized by the public. And the battle between the strongest of this generation seemed to have begun with the opening of the nameless Tao Academy. Even amongst the many geniuses that were highly regarded, the two of them were famous existences. One was the descendant of the Diwu family, an existence that had once produced a god. It was almost comparable to an immortal inheritance. And Diwu Hard-Hearted was the most outstanding disciple. His shooting sun swordsmanship was almost invincible. No one could get close to him. As for the other one, he had challenged several of the most powerful monsters in the world when he first appeared. Yet, he was still able to survive until now. Just this alone was a huge miracle. This was definitely a battle between dragons and tigers. It was even more eye-catching than a few months ago. In these few months, they had all grown. Even though these few months were very short for them, for these people, these few months were enough for them to change a lot. Don't be too confident. It is still hard to say who will win and who will lose. Yi Shiwen also became serious, no longer as relaxed as before. Then let us begin. Diwu Hard-Hearted's cold and murderous voice came from in front of Yi Shiwen. His eyes were as black as the night, and his murderous aura shot up into the sky. Although he was not like Yi Shiwen, who could be said to be numb to killing people and who knew how many experts he had slaughtered, he did not lack battles. It was just that Yi Shiwen's experience was too strange, forcing him to fight against the heavens, against the earth, against the people. As Diwu Hard-Hearted spoke, his aura seemed to have an astonishing aura guiding him. It was as if he had become the center of the universe. This power was very vigorous, and countless spiritual energies were automatically absorbed. Even a casual movement would cause a surging spiritual energy current to sweep out. He did not know what kind of mental cultivation method it was, but it had always been shocking. With the countless years of foundation of the Diwu family, it was not strange for them to have any kind of shocking cultivation method. So powerful. Just his aura alone is already so shocking. Someone could not help but exclaim, "Hiss, I'm afraid that even an ordinary profound death realm expert would not be able to release such a shocking aura." This Diwu Hard-Hearted had just broken through to the profound death realm a few months ago, and now he has already grown to such an extent. Has he really entered the stage of great eruption? That must be it. These people's eruption came late, but it came even more fiercely. In a short period of time, they will most likely break through to a higher realm. These people will all be seeds of the legend realm. I don't know how Yi Shiwen will deal with it, but he is not an ordinary person. He has many tricks up his sleeves, and he will definitely not fight a battle he is not confident in. Since he has returned, he must have come prepared. Everyone discussed, but Yi Shiwen's confidence could not be shaken. He stared closely at Diwu Hard-Hearted. When that astonishing aura pressed down on him, he did not even see him counterattack. He only took a step forward and completely destroyed this astonishing aura. In an instant, it was completely destroyed like a cool breeze, as if it did not exist at all. "Make your move. Let me see how much progress you have made in these few months," Yi Shiwen said indifferently. "Don't be so full of yourself." Diwu Hard-Hearted frowned slightly, a little displeased. Who did this person think he was? See how much progress he had made? Did he really think he was some kind of senior? Whoosh! And at this moment he made his move. His hands were obviously empty, but he just stretched them out and made the standard posture of shooting an arrow. Countless spiritual energy frantically gathered towards his hands and condensed into an incomparably huge arrow of light. Countless spiritual energy began to revolve within it and turned into talismans one after another. Then, they suddenly shot out with a loud bang. Rumble! This incomparably huge arrow of light had already destroyed everything in an instant and directly swept towards Yi Shiwen. Although the space had been reinforced by the matrix, wherever this arrow of light passed, the space still fluctuated violently, like a piece of paper being blown by the wind. It was incomparably violent. At this time, Yi Shiwen also moved. His big hand grabbed towards the void, and a golden long sword suddenly condensed. Then, he slashed out with a loud bang. It turned into millions of golden sword lights and directly slashed down. These beams of light were not ordinary beams of light, but rather talismans of the Tao of the sword. At this moment, all of them transformed into sword beams, causing these millions of sword beams to burst forth with shocking power, directly causing a large area of the air to collapse. Bang! Both sides directly collided, creating earth-shattering power. In such a moment, the completely different martial arts of both sides fiercely collided. Yi Shiwen's sword technique was extremely complex. Countless law talismans, densely packed together, were enough to frighten people to death just by looking at it, superimposed with astonishing power. On the other side, Diwu Heartbreaker's simple arrow was not weak in the slightest. Countless waves of air swept out, directly rushing out of the martial arts arena, penetrating the matrix, and even the onlookers could feel the fluctuations of the battle between the two sides. Many people's eyes flashed with a light of horror. This was because they were sealed in the matrix. Otherwise, the aftermath that spread out would be enough to make them retreat for hundreds of miles, not daring to come close. Is that all you've got? Yi Shiwen, if this is all you've got, then you will definitely be defeated by my hands. Diwu Heartbreaker's cold voice came out. Too slow, too slow. Just when everyone was incomparably shocked, another sharp arrow directly burst out. It completely shattered the sky and went straight towards Yi Shiwen's face. Everyone suddenly turned pale with fright. They did not know when Diwu Heartbreaker had actually shot out another arrow. The collision between the two sides just now seemed to have taken a long time, but in fact, it was only a moment. In such a short time, he had actually shot out 2 arrows in a row. This kind of shooting speed was really too shocking. For an archer, the speed at which they fired directly determined whether they would encounter danger or not. After all, this wasn't a battlefield, but an arena. The distance between the two sides was very short. For warriors like them, tearing open the space would only take a breath's time before they could pounce on their opponent. Therefore, although there was a saying that an inch longer was an inch stronger for archers who were not close combat, this was almost an insurmountable natural flaw. No matter how powerful their arrows were, as long as they did not have the opportunity to shoot, no matter how powerful they were, it would be useless. Therefore, for archers, even more so than ordinary warriors, shooting speed was even more important. Because of the long range, even top archers could shoot tens of thousands of miles with one arrow. So for them, movement techniques were not very important. The real deciding factor was their shooting speed. The faster their shooting speed, the stronger their strength. As long as their shooting speed was fast enough, no one could get close to them. It did not matter even if they stood still. So, to a certain extent, movement techniques were basically useless to them. Rapid arrow. It's rapid arrow, someone exclaimed. For archers, rapid arrow seemed to be only a basic skill, but the speed of rapid arrow shooting was where their true strength was tested. And the most powerful skill of archers was also rapid arrow shooting, which was their most dangerous skill. Slow? I don't think so. Yi Shiwen faintly said. It seemed as if he didn't care about the arrow that was flying straight towards his face. The arrow had already arrived in front of him. The sharp astral wind directly blew his hair and made it fly in a disheveled manner. Chapter 1972. In an instant, the arrow was already in front of Yi Shiwen, but he still looked calm, as if he didn't care at all. Many people exclaimed, could it be that the battle had just begun, and it was already over? Although it seemed very incredible, it was also very normal. For powerful existences at their level, many times victory or defeat was decided in just an instant. A momentary mistake could determine the victor between two people of similar strength. Not to mention Yi Shiwen, who was so careless and didn't even dodge. Is this Yi Shiwen crazy, or did he not react at all? This arrow didn't even have the slightest reaction. I think he's scared silly. I've heard of archer's rapid arrow, but I've never heard of such a fast rapid arrow. That's right. Diwu Heartbreak's hand speed is simply too fast. It's normal for Yi Shiwen to not react in time. Everyone almost couldn't bear to watch the situation. It seemed that they were completely certain that Yi Shiwen was going to die under this arrow. And almost at the same time as they spoke, the golden long sword in Yi Shiwen's hand, which was originally still in the posture of a sword strike, suddenly moved when the long arrow was about to hit his face. Fast, fast, fast. Almost no one saw how he moved. And then they saw a golden sword light, which directly slashed the sword when it was only a few millimeters away. Rumble! Another shocking explosion spread out, and the air was directly blasted into pieces. A large area collapsed, and circle after circle of shock waves spread out. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. They couldn't care less about the shock waves that blew out, which were like astral winds raging on their bodies. Almost instinctively, they operated their internal strength to resist this astral wind. What just happened? Someone said in disbelief. My eyes aren't deceiving me, right? How did Yi Shiwen do it? He cut down that arrow in such a short period of time. It's so fast that it's unbelievable. No wonder he didn't care about Diwu Hearthearted's rapid arrow. He's even faster. Yes, this attack speed is simply amazing. Diwu Xion's attack speed is already amazing enough. After all, he is from the Diwu clan and has all kinds of secret techniques to increase his hand speed. But how did this Yi Shiwen do it? Why is his speed so fast? Many people were dumbfounded. They knew that Yi Shiwen's speed was very fast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape from the pursuit of Elder Xianting and a group of experts. However, the speed of his agility technique and the speed of his attacks weren't the same thing. For example, Diwu Sadness's attack speed was extremely fast, but compared to many experts, the speed of his body technique could only be considered ordinary and not too amazing. With the speed of Yi Shiwen's body technique, if he had dodged in advance, then it wouldn't have been a big deal, and people could still believe it. But to directly cut down at such a critical moment was completely beyond their understanding. Behind that endless shockwave, Diwu Hard-Hearted's face also revealed a somewhat shocked expression. He could sense that Yi Shiwen was not simple, but he did not expect him to be able to use such an unimaginable method to break his rapid arrows in such a short period of time. This was completely beyond his expectations. But this was both unexpected and reasonable. If he wasn't such an expert, he wouldn't have come to keep the appointment after breaking the contract a few months ago. Your speed is not bad, but it's still far from enough. Yi Shiwen's indifferent voice came. Almost in that instant, Diwu's sadness reacted. He opened his eyes and directly saw through the entire void. In his eyes, Yi Shiwen, who should have been very far away, was actually already charging towards him. In this arena, because the space was completely sealed, if you wanted to move, you could only rely on your own body. In other words, Yi Shiwen's almost instantaneous movement speed was actually the movement speed of his body. It was simply shocking and earth-shattering, and he didn't have the slightest hesitation. In the next instant, he had already launched an attack. Whoosh! An arrow directly shot out, and the mighty arrow light directly broke through the sky, fiercely blasting towards Yi Shiwen. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen's figure instantly disappeared, and the arrow directly bit into thin air, missing Yi Shiwen's body. He disappeared. Diwu Sadness's eyes were extremely calm. After seeing Yi Shiwen's speed just now, he was not surprised at all. It was normal for someone with such a body technique to be fast. But his hands didn't stop and directly shot out a dozen more arrows. Whoosh! 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 His long arrows directly shot into the sky, flying in all directions. What is he doing? Could it be that he has completely panicked? Some people felt that it was a little strange. They didn't know what Diwu's sadness was doing, because in that instant, Yi Shiwen had already disappeared. They also quickly used their divine senses to try and lock onto Yi Shiwen's figure, but it was useless. Even some old monsters in the profound death realm could only lock onto a wisp of golden light, and then it instantly disappeared. They couldn't do anything at all. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. If it was just tearing space, then the difference in everyone's speed would be reduced to a certain extent. After all, directly passing through space did not need to travel through a long space, and could increase one's speed to the highest level. This was not surprising, but in a situation where he could not tear space, he could reach such a speed with just his body. This was really too frightening. Was this something that could be done with just his body? This had completely subverted everyone's understanding of the speed of the body. But what was even more strange was that they didn't know what Diwu's sadness was doing. Everyone could see that the previous arrow was aimed at Yi Shiwen. So why was he randomly shooting arrows? Could it be that he is panicking? In the eyes of most people, perhaps that was the case. No, this is a very clever way of guiding. Suddenly, a late profound life stage old monster, who had been observing for a long time, finally opened his mouth. Not only have these young people's cultivations reached a high level, they are also extremely rich in combat experience. In the future, the world will truly belong to these young people. Moreover, this is merely within this arena, where the power that can be unleashed is restricted. If it was outside, the fight between both parties would likely be able to move mountains and fill the seas. It would be even more terrifying. "Senior, please guide us," someone shouted. "Haven't you noticed yet? His random arrows may seem disorderly, but they are all aimed at his own weaknesses," said the old monster in the profound life realm. Everyone knows that archers are not very fast, let alone very clever. Even though he is a descendant of the Diwu clan, he is no exception. As far as I know, the Diwu clan's movement techniques are not bad, but they are not at the pinnacle. Because of their movement techniques, they will have more flaws than others. If an ordinary person has one flaw, then they may have 3 or 4. His arrows are all aimed at his own flaws. These are his flaws, and at the same time, they are also the places where Yi Shiwen is most likely to attack with his magical weapon. So, do you still think that he is shooting randomly? There was some disdain in the words of the old monster in the profound life realm. These people did not understand at all. But in his heart, he was also exceptionally shocked. He had already made such a judgment in an instant. This was almost an instinctive reaction. This Diwu sadness was definitely not a flower that grew up in a greenhouse. He must have experienced many battles. Realms could be cultivated behind closed doors, but combat experience could not be helped. But Yi Shiwen was even more astonishing. If Diwu's sadness instinctively knew to defend his weaknesses, then it was nothing. After experiencing 1,000 or 10,000 battles, he naturally knew where his weaknesses were and would protect them. But Yi Shiwen had only exchanged blows once, and he had accurately grasped his weaknesses. That was even more frightening. This kind of eye was called illusion breaker. In an instant, it could see through all falsehoods and directly grasp the weaknesses. If the fifth sadness's instinctive actions could be said to require 1,000 or even 10,000 battles to have intuition, then who knew how many battles and how many life and death battles Yi Shiwen's astonishing judgment could only be achieved at such a level? Even if his cultivation was higher than the two of them, their combat awareness was higher than his. So, Yi Shiwen's combat awareness was even more profound than his. That was why he felt that the younger generation would surpass the older in time. Otherwise, the world of martial artists was not a world that respected the old and cherished the young. This was a world where only those with bigger fists were right, and those with bigger fists were often old monsters like them who had cultivated for countless years. These two people had truly shocked him. Look, as expected, Yi Shiwen has been forced out. Suddenly, just as the crowd was still searching for Yi Shiwen's figure, just as the old monster had expected, Yi Shiwen was forced out. The place he was forced out was one of Diwu Sadness's weaknesses. Yi Shiwen was hiding there and was about to launch an attack, but he was forced out by Diwu Sadness. The judgment of both sides was simply breathtaking. It made their blood boil. The following battle would most likely be even more exciting. Chapter 1973. Although the crowd couldn't keep up with the speed of the battle between the two of them, they could still clearly see what had happened through the replay in their minds. This made them exclaim in satisfaction, simply to their heart's content. There was almost no waste in the movements of the two. Both accurately targeted the opponent's weak points. In this arena, the greatest power that both sides could display was limited, but it did not prevent them from displaying other aspects, especially the battle awareness of both sides. This was not something that could be measured by the difference in cultivation. For many experts, even if their cultivation had reached a very high level, their battle skills were still clumsy. That kind of battle seemed to be purely using strength to suppress the opponent. How could it be compared to this kind of exciting battle that looked so hearty and pleasing to the eye? In particular, the battle awareness and fighting methods of both sides made them feel as if their horizons had been broadened. Some experts were even enlightened. It turned out that it could be done this way. It turned out that it could be fought this way. This was also why many people liked to watch experts fight. It was because they could often discover some limits that they themselves had not discovered. The battle between the two of them was a complete mystery to the crowd. Now, it was already impossible to tell who would win in the end. And at this moment, Yi Shiwen was forced out of the arena, but he did not panic at all. On the contrary, he moved forward at an even more fierce and terrifying speed. Clang! Suddenly, he swung his long sword, and an astonishing sword light appeared. It directly cut the long arrow that was shot over in the air, and it exploded into bits of spiritual energy that dissipated. His speed was even more astonishing. Without the slightest pause, he actually directly closed in on Diwu happiness in an instant. Those arrows just now were all your weak points, right? Just one move, and you used all of them. Yi Shiwen sneered and shouted. Those arrows just now had forced Yi Shiwen to close in on all the possible places he could attack, but at the same time, it had exposed all of his weaknesses. The crowd outside the arena cried out in surprise. They were shocked by Yi Shiwen's battle awareness. For them, what they saw was Yi Shiwen being forced out of the arena by Diwu Happiness. But Yi Shiwen actually saw that all of Diwu Happiness' weaknesses had been exposed through those arrows just now. Now that he thought about it, it was indeed so. He was actually able to see through so many problems with a single glance. Many profound death stage experts could not help but break out in cold sweat. This Yi Shiwen possessed frightening insight. He was able to see through so many weaknesses and problems with a single glance. If they were to exchange blows with these two, they would likely be killed the moment they started. Even if their cultivation levels were similar, their combat awareness was far inferior compared to the two of them. Really? Are those my weaknesses? Diwu Heartbreak sneered and shot an arrow. The mighty arrow pierced through the air with an unpleasant and sharp sound. It shattered everything and went through Yi Shiwen's head. Not good. Yi Shiwen is in trouble. Someone exclaimed aloud. This arrow was too fast, and Yi Shiwen was almost hit head-on. It was another series of arrows. This arrow seemed to follow the arrows that were shot randomly just now. It was as if the arrow had already determined Yi Shiwen's position the moment it was shot, and then followed closely behind. Everyone knew that this was impossible. The only possibility was Diwu Heartbreak's hand speed. Diwu Heartbreak's extremely fast hand speed was fully displayed at this moment. Bang! With a loud explosion, Yi Shiwen's entire head exploded with a loud bang. His entire body exploded with a loud bang, turning into spiritual chi that filled the sky. The stars were like the most beautiful stars in the night sky. Not good! Diwu Heartbreak was shocked. This arrow had actually missed. The dozen or so arrows just now were just a pretense to make Yi Shiwen show himself. But that arrow just now was the real killer move. It was fast, urgent, and shockingly powerful. He believed that if it really hit, even if Yi Shiwen was a monster, he would still be seriously injured and nailed to the ground. Almost immediately, he instinctively began to retreat. After thousands of battles, he already knew what was going to happen next. Sure enough, almost at the instant he retreated, a golden sword gleam was forced out and directly blasted into his head. Yi Shiwen, who had been defending and dodging all this time, finally launched a real attack at this moment. The penetrative power was incomparably strong, and he condensed countless sword talismans. Its power was shocking. In this period of time, Yi Shiwen had been constantly comprehending the way of the sword and condensing a sword doppelganger. So when he saw Shang's comprehension, he had reached a shocking level. At this moment, it was completely displayed. The sword talismans continuously tore through the space, tearing apart everything that could be seen. Everyone outside could not believe it. They all held their breath and did not blink, afraid that if they blinked, they would miss a shocking attack. Almost in a short period of time, everyone realized that the offensive and defensive positions between Yi Shiwen and Diwu Heartbreak were very easy. Both sides switched so naturally, as if they were cooperating seamlessly. All this time, it had been Diwu Heartbreak constantly approaching Yi Shiwen to make trouble for him. But now it was the other way around. Yi Shiwen's sudden attack put Diwu Heartbreak in a desperate situation. And at this time, just as everyone was still guessing how Diwu Heartbreak would deal with Yi Shiwen's sudden attack, Diwu Heartbreak finally reacted. Look at my star web. The net of heaven has long arms, but nothing escapes. No matter what you do, defeat it for me. Diwu Heartbreak roared. His hands suddenly left after images as he quickly pulled back his bow and shot an arrow. Whoosh! 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 In that instant, 1,000 arrow lights directly shot out. In the sky, these arrow lights interweaved into a large net that flew in all directions. Then it suddenly contracted, as if the net had caught some prey. This hand speed is simply, damn, I must have seen wrong. Someone rubbed his eyes in disbelief. In that instant, 1,000 arrow lights had been forced out. This hand speed was almost invincible. No wonder Diwu Heartbreak was so calm just now. He didn't even use his full strength. This is his true strength. Yi Shiwen was forced out again. In a situation where he could not move at high speed, his figure almost immediately appeared, and he was discovered by everyone. Now, Yi Shiwen, my next arrow will completely end you. You don't need to struggle, because struggling is useless. All of this has been arranged by the heavens. I am the victor chosen by the heavens, and you will only be the loser. No matter how many people you have defeated before, in front of me, it is all meaningless. No one can dodge the arrow of our Diwu family, no one. Diwu Heartbreak shouted. No one knew when, but he had already pulled back a large bow. An incomparably large, long arrow condensed. Countless spirit energies swept into a tornado, condensing in his hand, and then obediently condensed into talismans, and then condensed into an incomparably large arrow of light. Sun-shooting arrow. Diwu Heartbreak roared out word by word like a wild beast. This was the first time he showed such an expression. He had already used all his strength. Before this, no opponent had been able to force him to this point. Boom! This earth-shattering long arrow rumbled and tore everything apart. It shattered the present world and turned into a wild scene. There were 10 suns in the sky, and a person on the ground was drawing a bow and shooting an arrow. He was not shooting at ordinary birds, but at the suns in the sky. This was the artistic conception of the sun-shooting arrow. When practiced to the extreme, the sun-shooting arrow could shoot down the suns in the sky with one arrow. It could be said to be extremely terrifying. The artistic conception of this picture scroll had already shrouded Yi Shiwen before the long arrow had even reached him. The long arrow was about to reach him, but Yi Shiwen couldn't move because his whole body had been shrouded by the thousands of light arrows that had just been shot. These light arrows seemed to have a mind of their own. They had almost blocked all of Yi Shiwen's escape routes. No matter where he dodged, he could be hit by these light arrows. But if he didn't dodge, he would be pierced by the sun-shooting arrow on the spot. This was a terrifying long arrow that could even pierce through the sun, let alone an ordinary warrior. He would be shot to death on the spot. It's over. Is it finally over? Sure enough, no one can block this arrow. The sun-shooting arrow is so powerful. Compared to the sun-shooting arrow a few months ago, it's like heaven and earth. It's not the same thing at all. The bloodthirsty werewolf hunter was also among the crowd. He stared blankly at this scene and was almost dumbfounded. A few months ago, he had truly experienced the power of that arrow, but compared to now, it was nothing at all. It could even be said that it wasn't the complete version. It wasn't the power, but the kind of artistic conception. The arrow that had shot him at that time only had its shape. It didn't have the same terrifying artistic conception as this arrow. Did he not comprehend it at that time? Or did he disdain to use it? The bloodthirsty werewolf hunter clenched his fists, and blood flowed out. His sharp claws and teeth had sunk deep into his flesh. He was extremely unwilling to give up. However, when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was finished, they saw the corners of his mouth suddenly reveal a smile. I won't hide since I can't escape. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.